なんかいろんなことがやっぱり大変なことっていっぱいあると思うんですけど、やっぱり格闘技は本当に格闘技って本当に人にパワーを与えるスポーツだと思ってて、こんな状況だからいろんなこと言われますけど、格闘技ってすごいスポーツだと思って、格闘技でもっとたくさんの人にパワーを与えていきたいです、僕は。
Ladies and gentlemen, what's good, y'all? It's Chris Gary, it's Andrew Benjamin. You tuned in to yet another edition of We Are Rizin podcast, your source for all things about Kakatogi, kickboxing, MMA, and just basically all things about the Rizin Fighting Federation and all forms of Japanese combat sports leagues. If you want to check us out on Twitter, you can do so. I'm on Twitter at ChrisGary92. Andrew's on Twitter at ABenja1. And the show Twitter at We Are Rizin Pod. WeAreRizinPod, all in one word. We'll give out the rest of the plugs later. But I think, Andrew, we got a special guest to talk about some special things going down.
Absolutely, Christian. With us today, we have, I would almost call him an enigma, but he always present on MMA, social media, Kick, or for all of your Japanese combat sports stuff. With us today, we have, I consider one of the top experts in Japanese kickboxing and also Takeru's #1 fan. With us, we have Karev_fan, who will be talking with us today about the K-1 K-Festa 3 Super Show that just happened at this famous Saitama Super Arena on Saturday. And Karev fan, thank you so much for talking to us. I really appreciate you taking your time out today.
Nah, thanks for having me on. It's always been, I wouldn't say a dream, but like a really, really strong hope of mine that I get to speak on one of these podcasts with you guys. So, with the city shut down, I don't have much better to do, so glad to be on.
Oh, well.
Understood. And can you talk a little bit more about yourself before we get into this fight card?
Yeah, so I am basically just a fan of Japanese kickboxing, which would be pretty unremarkable if not for the fact that there's probably only like 20, 30 people that speak English in the world that actually follows that stuff. Originally was raised in Japan where I was doing a bit of karate and then amateur kickboxing on the side. And then, while I was there, right, that was in the boom of the big K-1 period. So this is like, early 2000s to late 2000s and everything. People were doing a lot of kickboxing shows on TV. I wanted to speak about that, but like there was basically no Japanese internet for Kaktugi news at all, so to speak. So by coincidence, I ended up following this sport on like the English forums and stuff. And basically it's just been like 15 years or so of something me just watching this stuff live and then translating things from Japanese, sharing fight cards and fight news and things like that. So I've just been like a pesky bug that's been flying around this sport, and really glad to speak with you guys on this.
But no doubt, your presence has, I think, has definitely created more awareness for Japanese kickboxing, especially for people who don't know how to tread that water of finding those fights or watching them. You've opened up a door, I think, for much more fans to get more attuned and basically accessible to it. And for that, I really applaud you for basically you doing it on your free time and willing to do it for people worldwide who follow you on social media and all that stuff. Thank you so much for all that you do.
I'm glad that you say that. Yeah, I mean, like, especially like back in 2015 or something when, Rizin was just kicking back up and K-1 was kicking back up. That's when I really started getting heavy into this Twitter and other social media things. But there were basically nobody speaking English online that was even like porting over fight cards for these events that had 10,000, 20,000 people on it. Probably less so for Rizin, but a lot more so, especially for K-1. People weren't following it that much, and I'm really glad to see that, right now there's folks like you out there that's creating great content and following week to week, and, it's become a little nice sub-niche of its own. So hopefully better times ahead of us.
The one thing I do kind of regret because initially when we started, I didn't know that there was so much outside of Rizin when Rizin first started. So unfortunately,
Well, actually, Andrew, you probably might not have known. I mean, I have, but I was just more focused on the fact that there weren't many people picking up on it, or there weren't like outlets for fans outside of Japan to follow this stuff.
oh yes, and that's why we started this. But I feel bad that we have Rizin in the title when there was just so much. So that's one of my big regrets. Is fuck, if I could go back in time and be like just something more general, I would absolutely do it. But I don't know, I might be too late at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Andrew, people who listen to this damn podcast realize that we're more than just talking about the Rising Fighting Federation. I mean, we know they have 6 events a year at the time, but most of the time is spent, following fighters from outside the organization and following things from, other promotions, basically.
Oh yes, yes, yes. And speaking of other promotions, we are here to talk about K-1's biggest show of the year, at least so far, and probably will be, the K-Festa 3 show from the famous Saitama Super Arena, which just happened this past Saturday Saturday night for us here in the United States, but I believe it was Sunday in Japan, if I'm correct, Christian, right?
Yeah, it was Sunday, March 22nd, or for us, prime time, March 21st. Late prime time, actually.
Yes, and obviously the elephant in the room is there's this coronavirus thing going around the world, including Japan, and so I'm gonna get this out of the way first. And Kyrie fan, I want to ask: do you think it was smart of them to have this show despite what was going on in Japan at the current time?
Yeah, there's no way for me to say yes to that question without sounding like a colossal douchebag. I think the thing I can say is if you consider the level of unmitigated catastrophe this could have ended up into, this has not quite been to that degree at this moment. It's really hard to understate just how big of a deal this was. K-1 came back 4 or 5 years ago. Nobody on national TV was talking about it at all. And then the moment this event goes down and people start noticing that there's planned to be 10,000 audience event going down in Saitama under all this nonsense, it became national news. The governor of the prefecture of Saitama literally went to the stadium in an emergency crisis mode. People on Twitter, like congressmen, were tweeting about the policy implications of this and that, and it got a huge amount of infamy. more headline coverage than even like the average Rizin show, which is broadcast in front of millions. And obviously that's not all great coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even talk about, implementing specific policy as a fallout from this, like, actually codifying the fact that events above a certain size are canceled. I think Tokyo is talking about a lockdown potentially coming in soon. So there is fallout, and it's if you consider the amount of risk that these guys are taking, if they were to even cause a single case, like that can mean bankruptcy, right? Like that you don't really come back from if you get blamed as an epicenter of the coronavirus. To our relief, that has not been reported as of yet, even though these symptoms are typically they have a lag time, right? So we might hear differently in like a week or two. So it hasn't gone to that extent yet. And I think of two things that you have to consider here, if you were to think about why would K-1 go through with this, is what, the financial implications of skipping on an event like this is basically, risking a tango with bankruptcy if you're one of these fight promotions back in Japan. Because, these events hold like these promotions hold like 4 or 5 events a year. Like Rizin's postponing the idea of cancellation at this point because like they know if they have to skip on the next event, it's going to be a really tough financial year. And canceling an event like this and trying to recoup costs at the last moment, like that's going to be really difficult. So that's one thing. Like they basically had a gun held to their head. The other thing is basically the government itself was issuing the order for self-restraint to K-1. So they were telling K-1 that, hey, if you can care about the public good, I hope that you actually don't go off and do with this. Which, as you can tell from the verbiage, there is a pretty sissy move on the government's front, right? They weren't telling them to cease and desist. They weren't telling them, okay, we order you to cancel this event. We're going to compensate you for this last-minute cancellation, but you can't do it. They were just like, okay, we told them that they shouldn't, and if they go off and do it, then it's on them. So, there's actually been some level of sympathy for that. Like, actual politicians are trying to step in and defend K-1 on this at this front. So it's not all universal, condemnation. Actually, Genki Sudo, if you guys are aware of it, he was like a big K-1 hero star back in the day. He became
we all won Genki Sudo.
Yeah. So he became a congressman or like a parliamentary member, and he basically put out a tweet defending this. So, there's been some level of support. So at this point, all I can say is it hasn't been quite as catastrophic as it could have been. And I understand why they did it. It was still a really, really tough iceberg to sail past. And I don't know if it went past it yet.
You ever see the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original?
Yeah.
The response by the Japanese government was remember at the very end of the movie when Mike TV is obviously going to screw shit up in that little in the little TV room, and Willy Wonka is going, no, please, stop, don't. That sounded like kind of like how the Japanese government was responding. It's like, no, please, stop, don't put on the show, without any sort of like without any actual toughness, I guess you could say, behind their words. Because I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they could just come in and say, nope, you're not running this show at all. Yep. Pack up and go home. But they clearly didn't for whatever reason. I'm not going to speculate on why. We've heard, I know that one of the former prime ministers of Japan kind of said something about, I think basically my personal belief is that they wanted to make things seem good in the case of the Olympics happen to stick around, and it subtly, as soon as the Olympics say nope, the IOC said we're canceling, suddenly there's just a barrage of shows just being canceled and no open arena, no empty arenas. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with why the Japanese government was very lackadaisical and not so much tough in shutting the show down. I don't know if you want to agree with that or think that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people, accusing them of that as well. Like the day after this event was supposed to go down, I think the torch was supposed to land in Japan, and they were supposed to have a huge procession ceremony around it. Like that was supposed to be like a 40, 50,000 person event that they hadn't formally, canceled or changed at that point. I think they ended up doing a no audience thing with no contact.
Yeah, I think it was closed doors if I remember correctly. I think they didn't even like have press or anything. It was just like we're lighting this torch where nobody can see it, which is kind of defeats the whole purpose of lighting the torch for the Olympics, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, K-1 got off lucky so far,
But curious to know, given do you think this will have a positive or negative effect for K1 in the future? Let's just say if they're not. Well, I'm just going to put it generally. Do you think K1's going to be hurt by this in the future for what they did, or is it kind of just going to be forgotten? What do you think?
I think if they do get hurt from this, it's going to be from the fact that potentially large venues are going to deny them access to stadiums going forward. So I'd be curious to see whether they can secure Saitama Super Arena again next year. I think Saitama's a bit too close for them to be comfortable, but they haven't canceled their other shows in other cities yet, so maybe they can still use Yokohama and Fukuoka and what have you. I think besides that, there were, financially speaking, positives of doing this, right? Like, there were a whole lot of fighters that were on this card saying, if this event didn't go down, I wouldn't have had a paycheck for the next 3 months, and now I can get by. So, thank you.
Also, roundaboutly, this is not an insult to K1, but this was probably the most talked about K1 show I can remember since I started following online, just like the whole Japanese Kagutogi bubble.
Basically, the J kick theme.
Yeah, I felt like this was both was people outside were interested and people inside were obviously interested. Like, it kind of got a little bit of both, just because it was I think also by process of elimination, this show was the only show that was running that weekend.
I thought that like MMA fighting put up like an article about top K-Festa KOs or something. It's like, when's the last time that's happened?
Even New York Times even covered the show. I don't know if you saw the article, but I think their Japanese correspondent as well said that what was talking about it's a lone wolf show going up in Japan. So yeah, it got coverage in a unique, definitely in a unique way, and also under unique circumstances. So I can't fault them for the amount of publicity they got. I mean, hopefully it doesn't hurt them. If we find out, like 2 weeks later, Takeru has coronavirus. Oh boy,
It's fine. He only has deafness.
Oh, okay. Actually, I think that a bunch of the fighters did get tested. I think, right after the show. I heard one of them did.
A lot of the fighters got what?
I heard that one of the fighters did get tested for coronavirus and was found negative.
Yeah. I think they were supposed to have been doing testing for the fighters, and the other thing is that everyone who attended the show had to give them, their name and address and everything, so that if there are follow-ups, they can link it back to the event.
Gotcha. So speaking of the event, let us talk about this show, K-Festa. There's 25 fights.
Do you talk? Speaking of the show, there are 25 fights on this card, but do you want to start off by talking about the 4-fight prelims or the other 25 fights on the card?
Sure. I just want to say, though, this was on Abema TV, and I watched a little bit live on Abema and made the mistake of thinking it would be archived the next day. And boy, I'm never making that mistake again. Because then
they are archived, but it's behind the paywall. And you have to do the geo-lock thing,
Yeah. Luckily, though.
Before we even get to talking about this card, I just have to ask: Do you think that the rest of the world is kind of cut off from K1 because of the fact that it only shows on Abema, and the only way you have to watch is via a Japanese VPN?
Oh yeah, obviously, man. I mean, K-1 almost doesn't pretends we don't exist. And I think people have hypothesized on the reason for that. Like, if you follow K-1's history and where the brand rights reside at this point, um, it is possible that K-1 Japan just doesn't have the right to really go out and pursue market opportunities outside of the country. Or it could just be this weird thing that K-1 Japan does because that's what K-1 Japan does. And, they have their quirks and somehow they keep fading into success. So,
I'll say
yeah.
they definitely left a lot of money on the table. I think if they had gone on like Fight or done something that international audiences could pay to watch or something along those lines, I think they would have gotten a good amount of people to pay and watch since they had no competition that night.
Yeah. You know that like Rise does its shows on Fight, right? And they're like maybe half the size, if that. So
yeah. Well, they did the GP last year. I don't know if they did any other shows, and I think the GP was supposed to be again this year, but unfortunately, that won't be happening because Rise canceled all their shows as well.
yeah,
so
it might get back to June.
If you know anybody who works at K1, Karev, let them know that American fans will pay to watch, especially now since we have nothing to watch at all when it comes to combat sports. They missed the perfect opportunity to get us, and they fucked it all up in that respect, in my personal opinion. But yeah, so let's talk about the first 4 prelim matches, which were pretty awesome. I'm just gonna go for them briefly because, like I said, there was 25 matches, and it actually took me 3 days to.
I'm just gonna only read the results of them,
okay.
If that's okay with you, Andrew.
Yeah, sure. But before you do, Christian, I just want to say this show took me 3 days to watch. I watched the entire thing on that Chinese website, whatever it's called, Live QQ or whatever. And I didn't. My theory behind this is that they made the show so long because in case if anybody did have corona, by the time that the show would have started and ended, coronavirus would be totally out of their system by the time the show ended. That's my theory.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, 25 fights, 8 hours. We can get going on the prelims if you want, but there's also a lot of like business reasons why they do this thing of drawing out events and just stacking everyone on the card.
Oh, sure. We'll talk about the prelims first, and we'll get into that. But yeah, Christian, go ahead. Read the 4 prelims.
Okay, let's go ahead and get these prelims out the way. Prelim number 1, the 121-pound matchup. Rira defeated Kyokin Jin via TKO head kick. 1 minute 57 seconds of round number 1. Fight 2, 138-pound prelim. Oh wait, actually, let me read the records as well. Rira moves to 2-2-1. Kyokin Jin drops to 1-1. See, I'm stumbling over this. I mean, I have to do this shit rapid fire. 138-pound prelim. Hikaru Hasumi defeated Hisaki Higashimoto via TKO. Third round, 2 minutes 53 seconds. Hasumi improves to 4-2. Higashimoto drops to 12-15 overall. 121-pound prelim. Ryamu defeated Ryuto via unanimous decision after 3 3-minute rounds. Ryamu improves to an undefeated 6-0. Ryuto drops to 4-9-2. And in the final prelim, Shinya Uemura and Seiya Tanigawa fought to a majority draw in a 198-pound contest. Uemura drops to 10-10-1. Tanigawa 4-3-1. But Andrew was going to ask this. I'll probably ask this myself. Why do they stack all these fighters on this card to make way for the to make way for these prelims that nobody can watch?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? If you consider where K-1 makes its money, they probably make a bit of money off of the strings because they have Abema sponsoring them as a major partner, and they're one of the top content providers for them. But the vast majority of where the money is coming from is from ticket sales, and specifically the fact that they can stuff these events by having each fighter basically sell anywhere between 50 to 500 tickets themselves by hand. So if you move up from a place where you're trying to fill like 7,000, 8,000 people in like one of the annex arenas or in like what used to be Yoyogi to moving up to Saitama Super Arena with 17,000, they're not gonna get like casual fans to come in and watch K-1. Like there's no marketing behind this product. What they have to do is have a lot more fighters on the cards going around selling their friends tickets and stuff. So, the more stacked these cards become, the more people they put on it. And not only that, like if you look at like the rankings on the Beam, right? They track basically view counts. But to my knowledge, those aren't live viewers, but those are counted views. So I think this event got like 4.1 million views or something. The longer you can stretch out these events, not only is that more ads that you can be throwing in as a programmer if you were a Bema, but you can also be basically drawing out the stream longer and longer so that more people flip to it and get counted on the cumulative views and the closer to the top that you go. So a lot of business reasons to do this. I know like Knockout, like they're another kickboxing promotion in Japan. They wanted to basically do events that are only like 5 fights each, because that's basically max concentration for like a 90-minute to 2-hour TV broadcast, and they wanted to go more that way. And then they were also not having their fans, their fighters sell tickets, which is a more fan-friendly model, but they also couldn't fill arenas, and they're downscaling now. So every weird thing that K-1 does, it has a reason. It's just sometimes we just can't figure it out.
I just want to reiterate as well, while Christian is reading the records, they are not the complete, I believe. Kickboxing records are always just generally wonky. So whether you see them on SureDog or Tapology, don't take those records as the whole truth. They probably have had a lot more fights, especially when we get into Thai guys who have like 95 fights. Just quickly, so Christian, did you happen to see any of the prelims by any chance?
No, I'm just as oblivious to them as you are. I'm reading the results off of not only Tapology, but Mike's Skype at the Body Lock.
Gotcha. Karev, I just want to quickly go over the prelims. You saw all the prelims. I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, so wasn't that Rira opening match? Wasn't that kick that he did to Jin wasn't it just a beautiful knockout?
Yeah. It's like I think it's the second time in his young career that he got like a head kick knockout, or maybe I think he got like a spinning back kick down, or something in his first fight.
Christian, so that you're not totally oblivious, if you remember the Ryan Jimmo Anthony Perosh knockout or the Kevin Lee Gregor Gillespie knockout, that's kind of what happened to Jin, where he just kind of just got like kicked in the head and just fell backwards into the turnbuckle and was out.
Basically, what you're trying to say is he turned into a contortionist dummy on impact.
Almost. Yeah. It was almost like a ragdoll physics. Thank God that the turnbuckle was there. He would have gone. Yeah, it would have been total ragdoll physics.
Yeah, nobody tells the New York Times that like Kyoken Jin is 16 years old and that was his second fight.
Oh, I didn't even know. Oh my God, I'm trying. Oh, I think okay. So since obviously they only have the names in English, I wasn't paying attention to the numbers that much. Now I remember I saw a 16, and I told you I can't believe I missed that.
Kyoken, yeah, the first name, the Kyoken, that's not actually his name. It's like a nickname, and he got it from this veteran kickboxer called Kyoken Takeuchi. And he was supposed to come in and be his successor and like show off his hands and something. But yeah, Rira is apparently like a Taekwondo champion, and apparently that works sometimes.
The second fight, Hikaru Hasumi versus Sasaki Higashimoto. So apparently, I don't know either of them, but apparently Hisaki is a guy who wins and then loses, like either by knockout or like in the last round. That's apparently what his gimmick is. Because I looked at his record and I'm like, oh, this is not the first time he's been knocked out in the third round. When I'm presuming that I presume that he won. That's basically what happened. He's winning and then just gets knocked out.
That's basically him. He's sort of a melancholy case, to be honest. Because maybe like 8 years ago, he was part of like the Youth Grand Prix in Crush, and he was supposed to be one of those up-and-comers. And he knocked out Hiroya, I think. So, he was always supposed to be one of those next big things, but his chin never held up, and He's just repeating KO wins and KO losses, and this is probably on the tail end of his career at this point.
I just also want to know, a lot of these kickboxers, a lot of them come from various gyms in Japan, but the one that I see as most prominent, other than Try Hard, is the K1's own gym, and that's I think where Takeru also trains. Am I correct?
Yeah, so K-1 actually has like a chain of gyms. I think they might have like 12 or so. And this is sort of like a little rabbit hole in itself. But basically, when 2014 or something, when they were trying to get back up, they went out to all the major gyms in Japan and signed them up into this conglomerate of gym networks. So one of them, which was probably one of the best ones, was K1 was Team Dragon, K1 Team Dragon, and that was basically where Kinsaku Maeda, who was probably one of the legend kickboxers in Japan, and also a legendary trainer. He trained guys like Masato, Kohi, and 100 others. Like, that's where he had his team. And he raised Takeru, he raised the Urabe brothers, he raised Yamazaki, Teraki. And basically, they had this big falling out with him, and they went off, this star Sable went off and founded K1 Team Crest. So Higashimoto is a part of that. And basically, maybe like half the other guys on this card are part of that as well.
Yeah, I know. Is it kind of like one has their own gym of basically? Does K1 try to like push the guys in the K1 gym, kind of like how one tries to push the people in the Evolve camp?
Oh yeah, it's like a pyramid. I mean, they call it a pyramid themselves. Not everybody. Like, I know that there are people who belong in the home K1 gym in the headquarters that go off and do fights and other promotions. But basically, if you're joining a K1 gym in the first place, it's because you want to be part of this pyramid, starting from Chaos, going up to Crash, and then finishing off in K1. So, it's like its own little isolated country that within itself that's completely separate from the kickboxing world.
Gotcha. The next match was Ryamu versus beating Ryuto by unanimous decision. I'll be honest, don't remember that much about this fight because I have no notes on it, so I don't know if anything really happened prominent. Anything that you want to say, Karev, about that match?
It was a fine fight. I think out of the prelim fighters, Ryamu is probably the best. But it was basically like a clean 3-round decision for him.
Mm-hmm. And now the next match, probably the most unique match on this entire card, I thought. The Shinya Uemura Seiya Tanigawa majority draw. Basically, two fat guys kickboxing, and like the thing why I thought it was unique is because they stood out among like everybody else in this card. You had like 150-pound fighters, 120-pound fighters. I think the you had 205, but these guys looked like they kind of looked like ballroom brawlers more than actual fighters.
Yeah, it's a really weird one. One of them, Tanigawa, he's actually like a Shinsei karate champion, all national champion, and it was his debut in kickboxing. So I think they were trying to get him a body. But the guy he was facing, Uemura, he is literally, I think, past obesity line. I think he's like 168 centimeters. He's like, what is it, like 5'6", 5'5", or something like that. But he weighs like 95 kilos. So, like, he's just this blob that people just can't hurt because he doesn't feel body blows for some reason. And, Tanigawa's coming in from karate, so he can only throw body blows. And it's just like two guys neutralizing each other.
But it was a fun fight. I was when I saw these two coming, I'm like, oh no, it's gonna be that type of fight. But no, it was. I don't know if I agree with the majority draw though. I don't know. I kind of thought that Tanigawa may have won in the end. I could be entirely. I don't know exactly K1 how they precisely judge. Do you happen to know how the K1 judges how they score cards by any chance, correct?
I can tell you how they tell you they score cards.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Which is supposed to be damage, aggression, and then I think those are the big ones. And then you're not necessarily supposed to be penalized for, aggressive or passive stance and positioning. But that's not how they actually judge cards. Typically, they tend to give points more to the person that's coming forward and to the person that's trying to land head blows, whether they actually land or not. There used to be a joke in K-1 that judging the middle kicks don't count because that's basically all that counts in Muay Thai.
Gotcha. By the way, also you referenced Masato before. He was one of I think one of 6 commentators on this show.
Yeah.
I lost count because I thought like okay because they're bringing the rapper guy in later, and I lost total my brain shut down at how many commentators were on this show because I also saw the little blurb come up that shows like who the color commentators are and all that stuff. And I think I counted 6 names. And I couldn't believe
basically it was like a romper room of people trying to talk.
Yeah, I eventually just tuned out the commentary because I was just like, oh, I don't know who's talking and all this stuff. But does K-1 tend to have this many commentators, or is this just for a K-Festa thing? And how often do they get like Masato? Sorry, go ahead.
They basically had a couple surprises for the commentary, so to speak. Typically, they have a pretty steady roster, which is like one girl, one comedian guy who's been with K-1 for like 30 years, and Masato, who's the only person who knows what he's talking about. But for this one, they brought on this pro baseball guy who used to be the color commentator for K1 back when they were on national TV. So, it was like a K-Festa, we're returning to our glory days sort of thing. And then they also got Sato Yoshihiro, who was basically Masato's major rival when they were on the kickboxing ring. And, they had them commentating side by side and poking fun at each other. So it was a pretty, stacked commentary booth.
When there's 6 people though, like obviously, can you understand everything that's going on when there's 6 or 5 people just talking all once about what's going on and all that stuff? Can you concentrate when you hear all that stuff, or do you just tune it all out?
Well, the trick is to only listen to Masato because he's the only one that knows what's going on. Masato's commentary, by the way, is like the best commentary in the world. You just need to know Japanese to understand it. Like, he would literally predict things that are going to happen in the fight, like 10 seconds before it actually happens. He's going to be like, oh, well, he's going to get laid out by a high kick. And then it happens like 10 seconds later. And he just keeps doing that at every event.
So what about why did they have this rap?
To tell you the truth, Andrew, I mean, to tell you the truth, there's some people that can't even understand what's going on with 3 people commentating.
No, I can't.
How the hell can you understand with 6 people commentating?
I'm one of those people who 2 people, no more. I cannot take 3 voices just going in my ear, one ear out the other. Just hearing like 5 or 6 is just like wow, my brain would probably just melt. But who was this rapper guy who they had come in the middle of the show, the second intermission, Karev?
Yeah, that's not a rapper. That guy is Ashizawa Yusei. He doesn't look like it, but he actually used to be a K1 fighter like a year ago. And he's sort of like this notorious troll figure in Japan. Like, he was basically just flopping around, playing around, somehow managing to win or survive ranked fights, and basically one day he decided he's going to quit to become a rapper. So he spent like the last year fooling around and popping up on K1 reality TV shows and what have you. And this was supposed to be his big comeback to the K1 organization, and now he's petitioning for a fight. So they just have these weird things going on just because it's sort of like Japanese TV,
I got you. And before we get into the main card, Christian, I just want to say, so right after the intermission of the prelims, there was this big epic orchestral introduction of, I think it was a K1 theme that they were playing.
Yeah.
Is that something that they normally have at K-Festa, or is this just something that they did for this show, Karev?
I mean, come to think of it, if you're probably thinking about that, didn't K1 back in the day used to do introductions like that?
Yeah, like, back when they were on national TV, right? Like, they were a lot, bigger on the theatrics. Like, they would have, like, giant crane machines carrying people from corner to corner of the arena and have them, like, wear garlands like they were a Roman emperor and something, while they have a live orchestra playing. But that organization went bankrupt, obviously. And then this newer one that's hosting K1 Japan shows now, they typically only do. They started from doing like shows in front of 400 people or something in Shinjuku Face. So they are a lot more, mindful of where they spend their money. And it's only on these big shows that they do anything like this at all.
I know. I give him credit. I love the orchestra. I thought that was a really cool thing. Also, just to reiterate as well, this K1 is not the same K1 that probably a lot of people are more familiar with all the heavyweight fights and Crow Cop and JLB. That's not the same K1. This is, I think it's an entirely different company that owns it, right?
Yeah, so I don't want to say they own it, but basically, when old K1 died, right, they also had a bunch of different subsidiaries and partners that they were working with. One of them was Rise, which was a kickboxing organization that got contacted by them because K1 needed to move down into lower weights, and they wanted Rise to produce 70-kilo fighters for them. And then another one of them was this big organization called All Japan Kickboxing Federation, or AJKF. And then they were working.
I remember that promotion being the promotion where one of the Klitschko brothers got his start.
Yeah, and got knocked out. Anyway, that was supposed to be like its own, veteran promotion within the kickboxing world. But they basically tied up with K1 to do like K1 rules matches, and they called that event Crush. And then afterwards, when that organization went bankrupt, the company that, a new company got started up with the people from AJKF to do Crush shows. So that company went on to become a sword force in Japanese kickboxing because everyone else was out. And then somehow those guys managed to tie up with an operating company that licensed the name of K1 because, the rights of K1 are somewhere far overseas, lost in the crevices of bankruptcy court. So, there's this one guy called Mr. Kim who does this organization called K1 Global, which is basically a shell organization that hasn't done an event in like 4 years. And they basically seem to have licensed the rights to use a K1 name in Japan. Long story short, it's this completely other guy that's still doing these events. And, they sort of have an inferiority complex about the whole thing because people keep questioning their legitimacy.
When you say legitimacy, do you mean financial legitimacy, or I don't want to speculate and bring up the kind of the Y word? Is that I think you I don't know if you get the word I'm guessing, but do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's the fact that a lot of people in Japan, even kickboxing fans, don't really recognize K1 Japan as being a successor to K1.
Mm-hmm.
They consider it to be basically this other kickboxing organization that just happened to get the rights to the name. And you can agree or disagree with that, but basically, right now in Japanese kickboxing, there's been this civil war that's been going on for 4 or 5 years. And, it's basically K1 Japan versus everyone else. And, Rise is probably the other big name, but, everyone takes all the chances they can get to make jabs at K1 Japan's legitimacy.
Gotcha. Well, but with that being said, Christian, let's start with the first fight, which was a reserve bout in that 154-pound tournament that that K1 had that night.
Yes. We kick off the card with talking about the 154-pound Grand Prix and the tournament reserve fight that happened. Daisuke Fujimura defeated Kotetsu via unanimous decision. Kotetsu dropped to 13 and 16 overall, according to the body lock. Fujimura drops to 12-5 and 1, according to the body lock. Now, did y'all see anything interesting in? Did y'all see anything interesting in this reserve fight?
Yeah, Karev, I'll let you speak on that. It was a fight for me.
Reserve fight with Fujimura and Kotetsu.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you was Kimura for a sec.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, Kotetsu sort of on the downslide. He's a guy that can hit hard but has trouble hitting them. He retired one of my favorite fighters, Yuya Yamamoto. So, sad to see that's happening with him. But yeah, these two guys probably weren't going that far, even if they were in the main tournament.
When I saw Kotetsu come up, I was like, oh, Kotetsu book. Oh no, not that one. Totally different guy. No, actually, I think the same weight class. I believe. Lightweight, featherweight, whatever they call it in one. So what a coincidence that the two Kotetsus are in the same weight class. But this to me was just a fight. It existed. It was a good fight. It was good. Nothing else to say out of the 100 fights that they had on this show. Next fight, though, we gotta talk about because Minoru Kimura is awesome, and I'm gonna let you take over, Christian, with first round of the Grand Prix.
Okay, of course. We now go into the 154th Grand. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to try and get these results out when I'm completely tongue-tied. Anyways, we kick off the 154-pound Grand Prix quarterfinals as Minoru Kimura, who many people may remember as the guy who got knocked out by Charles Felony Bennett in 7 seconds in a Rizin ring, knocked out Kaito Ono, another former Rizin fighter, via 2 knockdown rule. 2 minutes, 10 seconds, round number 1, TKO, and Kimura moved on to the quarterfinals for the 33-9-1 record, while Kaito dropped out with an 8-3 overall record. And I have to ask 2 things. One, when it comes down to K-1, is it normally a rule for them to have a 2 knockdown rule? And as far as Minoru Philip Kimura goes, I mean, a lot of people haven't seen him since he got his ass knocked out by Charles Felony Bennett. But how big of a superstar is he in the world of kickboxing compared to that one MMA fight?
Before you answer, Crab, I just want to correct you, Christian. This is not Kaito Ono. This is an entirely different Kaito.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he's not the shoot.
He's
not the shoot. Right. So not the shoot boxer.
No.
Obviously.
But Crab, I want to pass that question that Christian had about the 2 knockdown rule and Kimura post hit the Rizin knockout loss and just how he's gone in K1 since then.
Yeah, so first one, so typically K1 has a 3 knockdown rule. They only make an exception when they're having a one-night Grand Prix. They basically need people to, get out of the leagues early, if that makes sense. Like, it's a lot of incentive for, a aggressive fighter to go out and try to kill the other guy if they already knock him down once and know that they can win the fight if they just get another knockdown. So, it's a special rules thing, basically. So, Kimura, he's basically like a phoenix, right? Like, so I think after he got knocked, so him getting knocked out by Crazy Horse is not, like, out of character for him at all. Like, that was happening for him in, like, this span where he got basically knocked out in the first round by, like, 5 different guys in a row. And then before that, he was on a killing streak where he was knocking out, like, a bunch of guys in a row, too. And then just so happens that he basically got his life in order after he went on that streak. He joined up with his old teammates that were, like guys like Yuta Kubo that were running the separate gym. And then he's basically managed to turn it around, I think. He's probably went like 10-2 or something like that after the Crazy Horse fight. Don't quote me on that. And he's basically got a knockout in almost all the fights that he's participated in. He got like 6 knockouts in a row last year, and now he's got another 3 this year, and it's only March. So, I think he's trying to extend that.
And the other question, what about do they change the rules for the prelims? Is that 2 knockdown rule? I know you said it's only for tournaments that are happening the same day. Do they ever do that for the prelim matches or for maybe the low level boxers, the 2 knockdown rule? So I know that Deep has different rules for the main card fights versus some of the lower card fights when it comes to rounds and all that stuff. Does K1 do that as well?
I don't think so. I think the thing that they changed with the prelim fights is that they have draws because they don't need to go into an extension round and settle things in a must-have decision. But typically, it's 3 knockdowns.
Gotcha. And I'm surprised the 2 knockdown rule. That was how the fight was scored. I thought it was because he got a body punch and then Kaito just kind of curled up. Unless they're counting that as a part of the knockdown. I thought it was just a knockout by body punch. Do you happen to recall, Karev?
Not completely. You might be right.
That's what I always thought. But anyway,
No matter what, since they got 2 knockdowns.
Gotcha. But Kimura, let's just say, was a force to be reckoned with in this entire tournament. And with that, Christian, I'm going to pass it off to you. The next match in the 154-pound tournament.
Okay, the second fight in the 154-pound Grand Prix was another 2 knockdown rule finish. This time by Elder Lopez, the native of Praia, Cape Verde, fighting at Lisbon, Portugal. TKO Katsuya Jinbo via second round TKO, 3 minutes 49 seconds. Elder Lopez moves on to his quarterfinal bout against Kimura with a 19-6 overall record. Jimbo 8-6-1. Now, as far as fighters from places like Cape Verde, I know that D'Angelo Marshall was one of those former fighters who fought the old K-1, but do you think that even though K-1, this new K-1 isn't really well known around the world because obviously of the restrictions, that they are still able to get fighters from around the world because of the prestige that K-1 has?
I think that helps a lot. A lot of people come in thinking they're still fighting for the same old K-1 organization. There's also a lot of fighters that come in and go to fight for Rise and think that they're fighting for K1. K1 is just a huge transcendental name, right? K1 was bigger than the sport of kickboxing at one point. So it's I think people like Chingiz Alazov or Murad Gregorian, 2 other winners of the 70 kg tournament before this, they probably wouldn't have bothered with K1 Japan if they didn't know the K1 name.
I also just want to say that Eder Lopez is probably has the coolest team camp I've ever heard of, the Jazzy Fight Club. It's the coolest nickname or the coolest name I've ever heard for a fight camp, Jazzy Fight Club. But also, can you do you know any more about Eder Lopez by any chance, Karev? Was this his first K1 stint, or was he returning? Could you just tell us more about him?
Yeah, it was his first stint in K1. So typically for a lot of these tournaments, K1 likes to structure its tournaments so that they have like 4 Japanese people and 4 foreign people. And for the foreign segment, they basically get a mix of people who are, veterans and, well known to the K1 audience and people who are new. I think so. Eder Lopez, he won titles in places like ISKA and I think WKA before. Respectable titles, but he's not a huge name for big promotions. I think he might have fought in Top King or something like that. I know he's beaten John Wayne Parr. I forget where that took place. So he's basically a guy on the fringes, shown to be competitive, but he was basically a new face.
Gotcha. Anything you can say about his opponent, Jimbo Katsuya?
Jimbo is better in the crush in K1. So basically his gimmick was that he used to be a street biker gangster type back in, back when he wasn't a fighter. And he comes in with that, biker gang purple suit and makes a deal about, going in for really aggressive attacks. But it turns out he's basically just like a pretty orthodox, fairly technical kickboxer, and not someone that's super crazy or anything. He's on a 3-fight losing streak now. Before this, he was fighting Yasuhiro Kido, where he got knocked out. And then he also went to a decision versus Jordan Piquet, who's also on this card. So he's been competent, but he's never been someone that's been able to really raise the top.
Does K-1 do they care about win-loss records, or is it kind of like the whole pride thing where it's, hey, you could lose 10 fights in a row, but if you draw and you like actually try to fight, they'll bring you back.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, like a lot of these guys have been on a losing streak coming into things and still got a major step up. You know, people care more about whether you can go out and put on a good fight and call in fans. So it's not really a sport like the UFC is.
Gotcha.
Of course not.
Yeah. Want to go into the next fight, Christian?
Yes. The third quarterfinal fight in the 154-pound Grand Prix seen the Golden Hitman Yasuhiro Kito knocking out Slovakian and infusion veteran Milan Palic via second round head kick knockout, 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Well, 1 minute and 54 seconds of round number 2. Yasuhiro Kito, the native of Isehara, Kanagawa, Japan, improves to 50-23-1 into the quarterfinals. Palace, the native of Zelina, Slovakia, drops to 45-8-1. First of all, do you have any thoughts about Milan Palace and, how he came about in K-1? And as far as Kito goes, how legendary is he? How timeless is he?
Well, for one thing, Paulus was supposed to win this one. So he's basically a regular on the Eastern kickboxing circuit. He got his start in W5, and then he joined Infusion, and he was a ranked fighter there. And basically, people coming in from that area have a reputation for, being able to step up on the big leagues and still being able to perform. So, with Nicholas Larson falling out of this tournament because of travel cancellation issues, it was basically supposed to be a clear field for him. But, Kito's a tricky guy. Guy's 37 years old. He's the oldest fighter on their roster. He's been fighting since the old K-1 days. And he's just never quit. And even though he's never really been close to the top, he's made it on the old K-1 tournaments up to, I think, Final 8 or something like 10, 12 years ago. He's always been around that level where he can be dangerous against anyone, and sometimes he gets blown out, but if you have holes in the game, he can always show you out.
Gotcha. Actually, it's funny you bring up the age. I was actually surprised by how old Kito is. He's 37 years old, which most of the people in this car were in their 20s, early 30s, but I think he was. You said he was the oldest person on their roster, right?
Yeah, oldest guy on their roster.
Oh wow!
There's been a couple other old K1 Max Japanese fighters that had tried their hand at K1. So Yoshihiro Sato was like a 2-time Japan champion. He was a lot better than Kito. He went into K1 and basically got decapitated and basically had to retire a short while after. And then the other guy, Yuya Yamamoto, he got knocked out by Kotetsu, and he was a crush mainstay but couldn't make it up to K1 Japan. Kito has somehow stayed around, even though he wasn't the guy I would have said was the best of the generation, and he just continued to be tricky. And I think he was going for like the, punches to the legs, for either this fight or the fight after, but that's been the trick he's been doing for like 12 years, and people still keep falling for it. So, good tricks for old dogs.
Was it him or was it Wajima who was doing? I remember it was either him or Wajima who was doing these knees to the legs. I never saw that knees to the thighs, like the upper thigh. I never saw that ever done before, or at least if I.
Those are more conventional technique. You see them a lot with like rangier fighters who might have done a bit of karate. So I think Noiri, who's on the card, those are a favorite of his. Kohi Ruimaki, that used to be his big move.
Okay, and with that, Christian, should we move on to the last part of the quarterfinals of the tournament?
Yes, we move on to the quarterfinal bout in the 154-pound Grand Prix, and you just mentioned him, Hiromi Wajima TKO'd. I mean, Hiromi Wajima TKO'd 100-plus fight veteran Avatar Morrissey via third round TKO leg kick 40 seconds into round number 3. Wajima moves on to his semifinal fight against Yasuhiro Kido with an 11-2 kickboxing record as the native of Gesenkai Team Samurai would take on the native of Isehara, Kanagawa, Japan. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Wajima from Osaka in Gesenkai Team Samurai took on Yasuhiro Kido of Isehara in the semifinals. Meanwhile, Avatar Morrissey drops to an incredible 81-43-3
My God.
in professional kickboxing. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that includes some Muay Thai fights. Damn, that's a long ass record.
Yeah.
It's whenever I saw these Thai fighters just come out and they say, "Oh, 22 years old, their record 95-10-3." I'm just wondering what are they doing? What are they doing? How does somebody find the time to fight that many times at all? It's just crazy. Are you at all connected or know anything about the Muay Thai scene, Karev?
There's definitely better people to refer to on that. But yeah, I mean, Avatar is he's been a guy who's shown on places like Top King and I think Max Fight. So he's a guy that's on a bit more of the entertainment overseas side of the Muay Thai scene, and he's a bit more actiony, so to speak, and probably less of a distinguished record.
Mm-hmm.
He took this fight on like 3 days' notice, I think.
Oh,
so,
I also want to bring up, that's a good point you brought up before. Like 5 or 6 of these fights got changed as far as like maybe a week before to like I think 2 or 3 days before the actual show, just because coronavirus. There was injuries, but also coronavirus fucked up a lot of the fights, including the co-main, and also like a bunch of the fighters couldn't make it. Actually, we'll talk about the female fight, the lone female fight on this show, and I was actually surprised that they had the fighter from Italy actually come in. I didn't think that. When I saw that she was from Italy, I'm like, how the fuck did she escape? How did she escape quarantine lockdown? How does she must have like put on a beard or something and like snuck into an airline, because I thought that Italy was entirely under lockdown, but we'll talk about that later. But this fight, the way that it ended, at first I didn't know like what happened. I thought it was a leg injury or something, but then apparently it looked like Wajima kicked him in the hip, I thought, but then it looked like it may have actually hit him in the liver, I think. Do you recall where the actual impact connected, Karev?
I thought it was a leg kick.
Yeah, it was a leg kick, but it looked like originally it was a leg kick to his thigh. I thought maybe, oh no, maybe he like just couldn't take, like his leg just like went dead on him. But then when they replayed it, it looked like it hit him in the hip bone. And I thought I never saw somebody ever go down from a hip bone, but on another angle, it looked like it may have just grazed him right in the liver.
Oof, that sounds tough.
But yeah, what out of all the quarterfinal matches that they had, did you have any particular favorite? They all ended in finish. So did you have a favorite finish among them, or like what did you take away from those from the quarterfinal matches?
Well, my favorite was probably Lopes laying out Jimbo, because I think those two were showing some pretty competent kickboxing throughout. But when that ended, it was basically lights out, straight 1-2. I think basically after the 4 fights here, and after watching Palace lose, it basically became Kimura's Grand Prix to win. And there's always a chance that something happens with him because he's such a wild card. But it was basically a star-making performance, just kicking off of there.
I got you. Was there anybody that that you were surprised? It sounds like maybe that you were surprised that Palace lost, but was there anybody else that you were surprised that like managed to win and go forward, or was it basically kind of predictable that those fights would go the way that they did?
I think Keto was the only one that I missed. So Kaito versus Kimura, that could have been a bit more competitive. Kaito's a pretty heavy-handed guy himself. He's on the he was on a 2-fight knockout streak before this, and he's also a veteran of Outsider, which is that street fight amateur MMA league they have that the Sakura brothers came from. So I had a faint hope that he might catch Kimura and make things interesting, but yeah, I mean, mostly according to plan, except for the third one, they say.
Gotcha. And with that, Christian, you want to move on to the next match, a non-tournament match.
Yes, now we get into the super fight portion of the card. 134-pound super fight that's seen you count. See, that's the problem with this. Sometimes when it comes down to these foreign names, I get very tongue-tied, especially when it comes down to the Japanese names. But still, point of the matter is, Yutaka defeated Satoru Nayai via unanimous decision after 3 3-minute rounds. Nayai improves to 4-2. Kawahara drops to 0-2 in his maiden kickboxing voyage. Were there any takeaways from this fight that made you think that Nayai was a big star in this contest?
I pass it off to you, Karev.
I'm surprised Nariai survived that fight, to be honest with you. He's basically a guy that doesn't have a lot of kickboxing fundamentals, to be frank, but he started his career off, got 3 knockouts in a row, and then he faced a Crush champion called Shimano, and it basically looked like this one where both of them were hurting each other, and Nariai refused to go down. So he got a call up on this. I think it was originally supposed to be a different fighter here, but basically, it was a last-minute entry into a fight he probably didn't belong to, and I'm surprised he survived with only a 30-25 card against him.
Oh yeah, Yutaka basically worked him for 3 rounds. I think if I remember correctly, Nariai even walked in. He tried to do a flying knee, but wound up not protecting his face, and wound up just getting like a sharp cross to getting knocked down right on his right. I think it may have been on his ass, but regardless, it was a knockdown. And it was a totally one-sided fight. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with either of them, but Yutaka certainly looked like he was the more superior kickboxer between the two.
For sure.
Anything? So now that with Yutaka winning, what you expect to happen with him next, if anything, Karev?
It's a tough thing for him because he's in a 60 kilogram division, which is probably the most stacked division in K-1 and Crush. So that's where Takeru and Leona and everyone else is. So I think he has 5. He's 4-1 in his last 5, I think, over the last year. So he's probably still 2-3 fights away from getting a Crush title fight. But I could imagine that he faces off against some of the other, contenders in the field to try to get into a title fight streak there.
Gotcha. So, but I'm trying to remember if it happened during this was the second intermission happened, but a J-pop girl band came out to sing. Do you remember that, Karev?
Was it a girl band or was it a single girl?
Was it a single girl? Maybe. Oh wait. Okay. So Deep Jules had the J-pop band. I'm getting them confused. Yes, it was a single girl. Yes.
Because they have Nanaka, right?
Yes. Yeah. They had the girls with the chainsaws, the hockey masks come out. So yeah, I'm getting my 2 things confused. Yeah. Who is this? Who was the singer who came out and serenaded the audience?
So that was the wife of one of the fighters that was fighting, and we can talk about that when we get to him, but the less said, the better.
Okay, gotcha. So with that, Christian, let's go on to the next match.
Yes, let's go ahead and move on to another 130-something pound super fight. This time it was the 138-pounders that got a chance to shine, as Hideaki Yamazaki knocked out Hikaru Terashima via TKO, straight right hand, near the end of round number 2, 2 minutes and 59 seconds to be more specific. Yamazaki improves to 32-8-1. Terashima drops to 4-1. Now, up until the knockout happened, did you really think that Yamazaki was going to go into this thinking, I'm not going to lose to this fucking undefeated nobody?
Yeah, I mean, Yamazaki's in an odd place because he's, I think he was like 32 or something. So if you're over the 30 years mark, K-1 tries to figure out ways to put you out for pasture, which is sad because Yamazaki was actually supposed to be one of the big stars of this new K-1 organization when they got started. For the first tournament, they matched him against Gale Ulidas Ukrek because they thought he was going to get that big win over a tie and just take the promotion to new places. And he's always stuck around being like a top five-ish guy in his division and being really, really good. But now they're at a place where they're trying to figure out new ways to make him lose. And, I found this fight was pretty entertaining. Like Terashima's coming in with all the Kido guys and like looking crazy and trying to stare Yamazaki down and what have you. And then the way he got finished was like he literally got turned around in the corner and Yamazaki threw a right hand straight into the back of his head. I mean, it was some pretty brutal stuff.
It looked like he was hugging going to hug the corner. It looked exactly like that. Like he got punched and then it was really 180 or 90 or whatever. Like the force of punch just turned him around and it looked like he was bending down to hug the I think it was the red corner. But yeah, no, it was a cool knockout. So now that you said that I guess the whole point of this fight was to try and maybe put Yamazaki to pasture, and obviously that didn't happen. What happens with him next, and what happens with Terashima?
Yeah, so Yamazaki at this point has like 3 knockouts in a row. He's beaten a couple of guys that are probably, you might say are top 10 within the division. I say that knowing that there's no divisions ranking structure in K1, but so he's basically at the place where he's the most obvious guy to challenge for the title next. That's a 60-kilogram title, and the holder of that is Rukia. He had a fight on this card as well. So that's probably a rematch that's coming up. So they fought once, I think, last year or the year before, and it was basically the fight of the year for that card, for that K1 season. So, that should be a really cool rematch when it happens.
Gotcha. What about his opponents? Who's like it sounds like they were trying to build him up, but that didn't work out. So what happens with him?
Yeah, back to the drawing board for him. K1 does these things where they might get a guy with like 5 fights, but like 5 really good fights, and try to throw them up against a veteran that's been doing the game at the top level for 5 years or something. So typically, when you lose that, it's probably back to Crush, which is sort of the underling division, and he'll probably be put on a place where he's being groomed to get the championship of that league.
Gotcha. Does K1 when like the fighter they want to win loses? Do they ever punish the fighter? Do they like try to put like okay you fucked up all of our plans. Now you got to face I don't know some guy who knocks out every opponent in the first round. Do they do anything like that?
Only if you're tie.
Gotcha. With that, Christian, you want to move on to the next match?
Yes, and this was one of the first title fights of the evening, obviously, the first of 3 world title fights on the evening. It was the K-1 Welterweight World Championship bout at 149 pounds. It's former Glory fighter Yuta Kubo, actually former Glory Grand Prix winner, if I'm not mistaken, Yuta Kubo, defeated now former K1 welterweight world champion Jordan Shaggy Picour, the trainee of Mike Passemer in Amsterdam, Holland, the Netherlands, via unanimous decision. All 3 judges scored the fight 30-29. Kubo becomes the new K1 world welterweight champion with a 49-10-2 record, while the man who looks a little bit like the Jamaican American hip hop star Shaggy, in the face a little bit, drops to 47-8-1. What were y'all's thoughts about this fight coming in, and did you guys really think that, Jordan Picour was gonna dominate this fight.
Sorry, Christian. Just a question: was Kubo the champion, or did you say that Shaggy was the champion?
Pikur.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have Kubo as the champion. Correct.
Well, shit.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Thinking about the Crush title, which
Yeah. Of course. My apologies.
So Kubo retained.
The reigning champion coming into this fight,
Yeah.
and this was his third defense of the belt.
So correct. I want to pass off that question from Christian to you. Did you think that? Well, change it around. Did you think that Kubo was going to retain against Shaggy?
well, he wasn't supposed to. I don't know how much you guys know about Yuta Kubo, and he's a guy that had the girl singing in for him and had a rap thing going on for his entrance.
Well, I mean, to be honest, the only thing that people know about Yuta Kubo, at least here in the States, is the fact that he won that Glory 65-kilogram tournament in 2013.
Okay, do you want the long story or the short story?
Nah, just give us the Clip Notes version.
All right. The short story is that Kubo basically fights once a year at this point, and when he's not fighting, he's always talking about how much he hates fighting and how he'd much rather be a reality TV star or a day trader or somebody that has like a love coaching business. So people were really looking forward to Pierre, pulling this one off because he's been on a killing streak and basically beaten all the top Japanese fighters in the division, like Noiri and Minoru. But then, Kubo comes in for his first fight in a year, and then somehow outpoints Piquet, who's been on a killing streak for like 4 years running. So it's I wouldn't say it's quite an upset because, a lot of people say that, hey, Kubo's technical, he always had the capability to do this if his mind was in the right place. So people are sort of disappointed but not surprised, I'd say.
Yeah, when you look at Picor, he looks like he's the kind of guy who, you look at him, you're like, oh, this guy knocks out fools in the first or second round. He just has that. He has that knockout. That guy who knocks out people. Look, if you know what I'm saying, you know how fighters just have that look. He has that. I think he has that type of energy. But yeah, I was disappointed that unfortunately did not happen. So, barring that, so can we expect Kubo to fight, presumably again next year, and then I don't know, still doing the yearly fights, Karev?
We'll see. He said he's trying to start up some new business on the sidelines, and he'll only fight if people support that. So,
Jesus!
all's in his court.
So he's basically holding his own fight career hostage. Basically, he's saying, "Support me in these endeavors, or I'm not fighting." So, I mean, I don't know if that's
or the K-1 belt, rather.
Oh, okay. If K-1 is just enough hasn't had enough of this shit, can they just say, "Hey, we're taking the title away from you. Get the fuck out of here." Can't they just do that?
They can, but they won't, because Kubo's still popping up on their reality TV shows and causing drama and getting in the headlines and giving notoriety to the sport. So they're sort of like a guy they're willing to go out and have farm publicity.
Gotcha. What about people?
Basically, like a reverse version of John Bones Jones.
Yeah.
So what about Picor? Can we expect to see him again on another K-1 card? Hopefully redeem himself to get a win or something along those lines.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'll give him the instant rematch that he's asking for. But I think it makes a lot of sense for him to fight someone like Noiri or Kimura, who he's beaten recently. And that might set up opportunities for him. He can also move up a division because this fight was at 67.5 kgs, but he was also at 70 kgs before, and that's where he went to runner-up in 2 Grand Prix that he went in. So he's a really good fighter at 155 pounds as well. So he might just go for the championship belt there.
Gotcha. And before we move on to the next fight, I just have one question I should have asked before. Why do a lot of Japanese kickboxers go by their given name? Just without the last name, without the family name.
Yeah, everyone's trying to copy Masato, basically. So Masato was basically this transcendent kickboxing star that was on TV and everybody knew about him 10 years ago. And now everyone's coming up here and trying to go by Kaito or Hayato or what have you. And then it's all fine and fair until, you realize there's like 10 Kaidos that are active kickboxers right now.
Oh yes, it does not make it easy when I have to research fighters and they just go by the name Yuta. That
Yeah.
entirely that irritates me so much because sometimes they don't even have, I can't even find their kanji sometimes, or their kanji is similar. If they're like, I think there's two Yuta Shibatas, one who's an MMA fighter, one who's a kickboxer, and I think one time, I think Yuta the kickboxer fought for Rizin, and when I was trying to look up fights that he was in, I was getting Yuta the MMA fighter. So it's all because Masato's the one who started this shit, basically, is what you're saying.
Basically.
Ugh.
He was actually supposed to go on after a different name. Like, he was supposed to be named, what was it? Fuji Kansaizan or something. No, Fuji Sankaizan. That was supposed to be his fight name. But he was like, that's too preposterous. That's too many characters. Just make it simple. And he went by his first name and ruined the sport for everyone.
Gotcha. With that, Christian, want to move on to the next match?
Yeah, let's go ahead and keep this train rolling. 127-pound kickboxing bout graced the stage as I'm gonna have trouble reading his name off. Jasuyayai Sordetchapan, aka Jasuyai Ayatoya Fight Gym, TKO Kaito Ozawa via strikes at the end. Well, actually, at the start of round 3, due to the fact that Dutchpan fucked up Ozawa so bad that he could not get up due to a doctor stoppage, cut lip, obviously. With the win, Jasuyai improves to 65, 35, and 2. Ozawa drops to 14, 8, and 2. And I just have to ask, even though I didn't see it, how brutal was that cut lip from Ozawa?
Have you remember that Alistair fight?
Yeah, I had that. Correct. Sorry to interrupt. I had that in my notes. That it reminded me of the Alistair Overeem Jair Rosenstruck fight.
Oh yeah, that fight that happened recently, where basically Rosenstruck just brutalized Overeem.
But the way that his lip opened in that last round, Christian. If you remember, Jair got that punch and it just ripped. It made this like perfect like rip in Overeem's lip, and it looked like someone just took his lip and just like split in two. That's kind of what happened here. But I correct me if I'm wrong, Karev. Didn't Ozawa lose a tooth or have an impacted something, an injury to his mouth beyond the cut lip?
I haven't heard of that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he took some crazy high kicks before that as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's crazy he was conscious. So
I actually, I just want to say that both of them knocked each other down in the first round, and it looked like I thought that Dutchpan was the one who was gonna get knocked down in the next round, but it was actually cool how it happened. So Ozawa tries to do a spinning back fist. Dutchpan, like at the perfect moment, does a high kick, and that's when the split lip opens. And I didn't think that they were going to stop the fight. I thought they were going to let it continue, but I guess is that something that normally? How is K-1 when it comes to cuts and that sort of thing, Karev? Are they like Pride and Rizin, where if you have like one slight cut, they're going to stop the fight? Was it just the way that this injury was that they stopped it?
They're a lot more forgiving in general because, for one thing, it's not televised national TV. But they do stop it a lot more than, say, the UFC or what have you. I think it was the fact that it was his lip that was cut, and it was so obvious that was the thing that stopped it. Because, it looked like a zombie movie out there.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking that maybe he had a broken jaw, that's why they stopped it. But then when I saw it was to cut the lip, I was like, oh, okay. But I think, yeah.
No, they don't stop on broken jaws. One of the guys in this card got a broken jaw.
Oh, okay. Oh, it'll be interesting to hear who that happened to. But the other question I have is, so a lot of these K1 shows, they pack. You said they packed them with foreigners, and I noticed a lot of Thai guys come in. Do they basically bring the Thai guys in so that they can lose to the Japanese guys? And is that kind of what their modus operandi is, K1?
There's basically like three types of Thai guys that K-1 will bring in. One is basically, a guy to put on the record. Avatar was probably close to that just because, it was last minute for him. Then they also bring in Thai guys that have, a really good record, and they might be a existing world champ or someone that's ranked currently, and they'll bring them in to try to get them to lose versus guys like Takeru, like Yoki Sada. And then the third category of Thai guys is basically like all action guys that go in to try to kill their opponent. And Zhao Suayai, who fought last night, was one of those. So they got him for a 57.5 kg tournament earlier in the year. And he knocked out did he knock them out? Yeah, I think he knocked out one really, highly regarded Japanese guy, and he had like a really close fight that went to an extension versus another Japanese veteran. And then he lost in the finals, but he made a good impression, got a call back, and then he beat Ozawa, who's also actually a pretty popular name in Japan himself. So they're definitely going to bring him back again.
Gotcha. What about Deshpan? You think because he won they'll bring him back, or is this one and done type thing?
Well, first of all, Andrew, let me go ahead and say that this young man, is 18 years old. Yeah, he's 3-1 in K-1, but let's not forget the fact that this man is 18 years old and he's already got 102 fights in him.
Oh my God! Wait, is 102 wins or a total of 102 fights?
Well, actually, no. Let me just rephrase that. He's got 112 wins in him. No, wait, actually, he's got 112 fights in him. And he's already 18 years old.
Okay, wow. Okay, so yeah, you definitely think we'll see Deshpan come back in the for a future K1 show, Karev?
He'll definitely come back. I think the trouble is that they're probably not going to give him a title fight soon away because he fought the champion in that division, Egara, and he got thrown out in the round. So, the hurdle to try to get a rematch after a performance like that, especially if you're foreign, is going to be pretty high. But I think they're going to call him back to try to face off against someone that's, probably a bit closer to the contender ranks, probably some local Japanese guy that they want to put him over.
And also quickly with the way that the world is going right now, I have no idea what it'll be like next month or 2 months or whenever K1 runs their next show. Do you think that there's just gonna be more Japanese guys based on the way that there's on the travel restrictions that are going around at this point? And do you think that they're just gonna be safe and maybe just have Japanese guys, a full like Japanese card, or foreigners who live in Japan by any chance?
Yeah, I think they do have like a couple local Thai guys who found success in Japan and stayed here. But we just had a guy from Armenia cancel on the crush fight that was supposed to take place tonight. So they're only gonna cut down from here. I think Japan in general is a bit more thinking that this is gonna blow up over soon. They still haven't gone into lockdown or anything, so they might be planning and scheduling, assuming foreigners are going to come in. But I'd imagine that if I was K1 or Rizin, I'd try to mitigate that risk for some of the fights for now.
Gotcha. Christian, want to move on to the next match?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go on to the next super fight on the card, a 121-pound super fight, as Masashi Kimura defeated Akihiro Kaneko via majority decision. One judge scored the fight 30-all, the other two had decent scores, 30-29 and 30-28. Kimura improves to 15-3 overall, while Kaneko drops to 9-1. Any thoughts about this fight?
Karev, I want to pass it off to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good fight. It was a technical fight. I think people are hoping this would be the fight of the night. So basically, for K-Fest 2 last year, they had Kaneko fight Kimura's brother, older brother, Shuhei. And then that was like one of the craziest fights of that year. So I think they were trying to bait them into having a repeat by forcing him to fight his brother. It was a really technical, really active fight, but it wasn't really anywhere close to that crazy. So,
Yeah,
fight, not the best thing in the world.
I have in my notes that was a fine technical kickboxing match. That's what it was. That's like that is it's I guess kind of like maybe the best and worst of kickboxing, where it's the type of kickboxing match that I think maybe kickboxing fans would love. But then if this is your first fight watching a kickboxing match, it might be the worst fight to ever come across, because it's gonna you're gonna understand why it's good, but it's not going to be like that barn burner, like the match you just said, which I haven't seen, but it sounds like it was probably much more exciting fight.
Oh yeah, I mean with this one, right? Like basically, Masashi realized that he had a jab over Kaneko, and they were trying to get in and get off combos, but yeah, you know Kimura was just like always a step ahead and always ending later, and he was just edging each one of the exchanges that they had. Whereas in the fight with Kaneko and Kimura's brother Shuhei, like one of them might like get off a spinning back fist and like it looks like this guy's gonna go down, but then the other guy strings together like a barrage of boxing combos, and it just went round over round like that. So good fight.
What do you think will be next for both of them?
Um, so it's actually a tricky one because I think if I was K-1, I would have wanted Kaneko to win here because he was this undefeated prospect, and he was basically like this big unknown wild card that was in the 55 kg division, and 55 kg is probably one of the most competitive kickboxing leagues out there. But the guy who's on top, Takeru, he's basically at a point where no one can touch him, and he's knocked out all of the top contenders there, including Kimura. So I think they were hoping that Kaneko wins this and goes off to challenge Takei, but that did not happen. So, Kimura basically has to go out and make the case that he earned a right to get the rematch with Takei. And it might be that to hype him up, he has to fight a couple foreign guys that Takei has had problems with. But that's probably in the future for him. With Kaneko, it's back to the drawing board. He's a champion in an underleague promotion called Crush, and there's a lot of contenders there. So he probably has to take a step down in competition first.
Do you agree with the majority decision, or was this a case where I don't know how often K1 judges get things wrong, did you agree? Oh, what do you think about the majority decision by the judges? Was that rightfully Kimura's, or should have been split or unanimous? Anything you could talk about that?
Yeah, I think you guys say one two of them had actual judging, but yeah, I think Kimura clearly edged it. Not a fan of the draw. I can see why they ended it there, right? A lot of the times, people will just give in scores, even if someone is taking, say, a fight with like 5% margin or something, just score it even because they want to extend it with the extension and try to get a more decisive finish. But if you're trying to be fair, like I don't think there's a case that Kaneko won any of the rounds, whereas I think there's a case you could make that Kimura edged all the rounds, if not decisively. So should have gone to Kimura.
Gotcha. With that being said, Christian, want to move on to the next match, and I'm pretty sure that this will be a unique match to talk about because I've heard so much about one of the fighters, and we finally get to talk about him.
Mm-hmm. That we do, and it's a 132-pound super fight as Leona Pentas, not be confused with his legendary friend Nicholas Pentas, the Greek fighter, defeated Yuta Murakashi via TKO third round, 19 minutes 33 seconds. Pentas, Leona Pentas, the native of Tagapo, Miyagi, Japan, improves to 27-5 and 1 more posted the native of Fujisawa, Kanagawa, Japan, dropped to 28-9. Now, I have to ask, when you think of the last name Pentas in kickboxing, what comes to mind?
Sorry, can you repeat that last sentence?
When you think of the last name Pentas, do PETTAS in kickboxing, especially in K-1, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Nicholas.
That's I really want to talk about this match because Leona was one of those guys I've heard so much about, and he's got a lot. I would probably say a cult following. Are you part of the Leona Pettis fan club, Karev?
Yeah, man. I started it. I am all on the Leona Pettis is gonna knock Takeru out fan club.
Ah, okay, okay.
Long before he became the 60-kilogram crush champion.
Oh man, he's been in the game for a long time. So let me see. I think it was maybe 2 years ago that no, it was probably like 3 years ago almost that he actually became. No, it was 2 years ago that he became Crush Champ, I think, and he's just been on script since.
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
So, I got where does the name Leona come from? If you happen to know that backstory.
That's his actual name.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's spelled with kanji and everything. It's called Leona. It's a weird name in Japan too, and then he just adopted the Pettis name from Nicholas. So, you know.
Yes, I have his name as Kato Riona with an R. I forgot the whole LR thing. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, he has a big following, and I can understand why, because he basically beat the shit out of Murakoshi for all 3 rounds, and it looked so one-sided. I almost felt bad for Murakoshi having to get this fight. What can you tell us about Murakoshi, Karev?
Murakoshi is a bit of a sad case, to be honest with you, because coming up when he was young, he took the championship in Rise when he was only like 20 years old or something, and it was supposed to be the start of this great legacy for him. But I think first or one of the earliest title defenses he had was against this kid called Tenshin Nasukawa, and he got blitzed out obviously by someone that was even younger than him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he stuck around that league, and he was trying to get the rematch versus Tenshin, which he finally earned. And then that went into an extension round decision, I think, or a split decision within 3 rounds, I forget which. But it was sort of like a much more competitive fight. But at that point, he was like, okay, well, I'm sort of burned out within Rise. I need new challenges. And he wanted to fight Takeru. So he moved bases to K-1. He was supposed to be a big signing for him once he first joined, and he took part in a Grand Prix that they had in his weight, and he ended up winning it, but he also ended up winning it with like a lot of really close decisions that people didn't agree with. So, you know, he became really famous, but he wasn't really well liked. And it continued like that throughout his entire title reign because he would keep dropping fights that he wasn't supposed to drop, and then still retaining the title because they were non-title fights. Actually got the fight versus Takeru last year, and then I think a lot of people, you know, his stock went up in that one because he made it competitive. A lot of people thought he should have gotten the decision, and then basically he was coming into this fight saying, okay, well, I got Rob versus Takeru. I'm supposed to grab a win here and then be back on the top of my division. But yeah, Leona sort of crushed those hopes for him. So.
I did see that Murakoshi Takeru match. It was a fun fucking fight. That was a fun ass fight. Even though I think that Murakoshi probably was definitely, he was clearly the lesser of the kickboxer between two. It was still competitive, like you said. It was competitive enough that it still was like that little glimmer of hope. That little glimmer of hope was there, but that kept me watching and kept me maybe thinking maybe. But alas, that was not supposed to be. Now with Leona. You just said something very interesting. Leona hoping to knock out Takeru Club or whatever you said. Do you think?
Yeah, Leona's gonna knock Takeru out, man.
Well, will these two ever have a clash, or is this something that K-1? You know, let's be honest. Takeru is basically their bread and he's their one man bread and butter. Is that something that they would want to do with the risk of potentially ruining that aura that Takeru has for their organization?
Well, that's the thing about Leona. The reason why he has a cult following is because he is such an unlikely hero. he is, to be frank, not super marketable. Like, starting from his name, and from the fact that he uses Final Fantasy or BGM music as his walk-ins, and everything about him is sort of like this, sort of gangly, awkward guy. But he's also a really hyper competent kickboxer. And basically, he's at I don't know, he's like in a 9 or 10 fight winning streak, I think, at this point. And he's beaten a lot of the guys that were supposed to be the, clearest competition for Takeru. So, maybe like as early as a year or so ago, people were asking that, he gets a step up to actually go out and fight Takeru. And he's become a Crush champion since then. He's made a title defense since then. He's also gone out and knocked out guys that Takeru has fought before in more compelling fashions. And people are really being like, okay, well, maybe it's about time you should give Leona a chance. But, hopefully things work out for him. The other thing behind him, and this is a bit of a sadder story, is that he has a mom that is currently fighting stage 4 cancer. So, they're on the timeline, and he keeps asking for that Takeru fight before, something that can be reversed happens. But, things just keep getting delayed, I guess.
Gotcha. Presuming in all likelihood that the Takeru, I don't think the Takeru fight's going to happen, if ever at this point. But barring that, who would be like the ideal next opponent for him? If Takeru doesn't happen, is there anybody that you would have in mind?
Well, I think I probably might happen for the next one because the only other meaningful option for Takeru at this point is Tenshin Nasukawa. But
Good luck with that.
If it doesn't happen, it probably is Oiwa, who is this other 60 kg guy around their division. He's basically like Takeru's little brother. He fights out of the same gym and tags along with him for all his training camps. So they might give. He's also, a fairly good kickboxer, so they might do it as sort of a grudge match thing, just to delay the fight. The other option is that in Osaka, in maybe like 3-4 months, they're planning to have an event there. And for the Osaka events, they always get this guy called Koji, who is sort of like the local hero. So they might make him fight him next. Either way, I'm hopeful that the Takeru fight happens, but a lot of other people for him to face elsewhere.
Gotcha. And the next fight, you mentioned his name many times, and we finally get to talk about his match. Christian, pass it off on to you.
Okay, 149-pound super fight. Former Glory 65-kilogram tournament runner-up Masaaki Nori defeated David Mejia, because he's from Seville, Spain. David Mejia via unanimous decision. 2 judges scored the fight 30-28, the other 30-29. Nori, the native of Nagoya, Aichi, Japan, improves to 41-10 overall. Mejia, as I mentioned, from Seville, Spain, 56-11-1 is his new record. He drops 2. So I gotta ask, what are your thoughts about Masaaki Nori, especially ever since, he's been a part of K-1?
Yeah, he is one of my favorite kickboxers to watch. Like, literally the first time we saw him fighting on national TV was when he was like 16 years old or something. And just since then...
Think of it, wasn't that at Dynamite 2009 when he
won exactly.
Ocean tournament?
Yep. And we were all watching him, and we were like, oh, wow, this guy's a robot. He is doing impossible moves from the future that no one is capable of. And, he's just been doing that for like a decade or so. And he's always been a guy that was at least, if not championship level, like the guy that can challenge the number 1 guy and probably give him a really close fight for the entire 10-year span. And, the troubling thing about him, I guess, is that he's just so good, and the expectations on him are so high at this point that if he's not pulling off video game combos against rankable opponents, then people are sort of like, oh, we're disappointed. And I guess that's sort of a story for this fight as well, because it was really close. I think both sides were really technical, but like it wasn't a finish, so Nori had to apologize after the fight.
Didn't he? Was he the fight that shaved his hair for not finishing the fight?
No, that's another guy. That fight fought a tie later in the card.
Okay, gotcha. Because that I want to hear about because I thought like, wow, that's takes some dedication. Now I'm looking at Nori's record on Tapology at least, and he has 2 losses against 2 people who we talked about before, Picor and Kubo. Any chance maybe that do you think that he'll get a rematch with Kubo at some point and maybe try to get the title? Think K-1 would want to do that because they're tired of Kubo shit.
Yeah, so Nori's at 60. Let me see. He's at 67.5 now, right? Yeah. And Kubo is there as well. Like, that's the ultimate backstopper, I guess, because last time they fought, Nori won. I think they fought like 3 times. Once was in like 2010 or once was in 2010 or 2011 or something. And then Nori was like 17 years old, so that one doesn't count. The second one was in the Glory Grand Slam, and then Kubo won that, but it was the last fight in a tournament Grand Prix, and then Kubo basically spinning back kicked his nards and broke his cup open, and it sort of wasn't a competitive fight after that. And then the third time, Nori handled Kubo pretty, one-sidedly and just dragged him down from the dominance of that division. So I think people expect that if they were to rematch, Nori should be able to pull it off. I don't know if that's the first thing they're going to go out and do. There are a bunch of names at that division, so they might deprioritize Nori. That's the thing about Nori, really. Like, he's just so good, and he's also such a company man that he's sort of like this convenient boogeyman figure for K-1 to play with.
And what can you tell us about Meha? Is he somebody who can come back at some point for K-1?
I don't know if they'll call him back for K-1. They might call him back for Crush. He's a really competent guy. Like, he's, fight was really close. I think he's also had good fights at places like Infusion and WLF. So they might call him back.
Gotcha. What about a match with Noriri and Picor? You think K-1 would be interested in doing that again, or is it kind of they don't really like to do the rematches like on that scale that much?
I think that's more likely than
It would probably be that, but they probably don't like to do fighters. I mean, they probably don't like to pit fighters in fights of which both of the guys just lost a fight.
Yeah, it was pretty competitive, and it was a really good fight when it lasted. Probably one of the best last year. So, and K-1 hasn't forgotten that fight, so they might do it. I think it's more likely than him fighting Kubo next, because it's just contenders fighting each other. But we'll see.
Gotcha. Want to move on to the next fight, Christian? Because I'm pretty sure when we talk about this, it'll probably last longer than the actual fight.
And I mean, come to think of it, do you want to talk about this one semifinal or both semifinals?
Oh, let's talk. Let's talk about both of them.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure the more we talk about the first fight, the more it'll take away the attention of the second fight. But here we go. In the K-1 154-pound Grand Prix semifinals, Philip Manoa Kimura knocked out Elder Lopez with a right straight, 1 minute, 2 seconds of round number 1, and Hiromi Wajima defeated Yasuhiro Kido in the second semifinal via decision after 3 3-minute rounds. Kimura improves to the final fight with a 34-9-1 record, while Lopez goes back to Portugal with a 19-7 record in his semifinal failure. As for Wajima, he moves on to face Kimura in the finals with a 12-3 overall record, while the Golden Hitman Kido drops to 50-24-1. first of all, what are your thoughts about Kimura's punching power? Second of all, I mean, do you think that Wajima dominated Kido enough?
What do you guys think?
Oh, I was gonna have you answer that first, Grev. You're the guest here. We want to hear you.
Well, Minoru melted that guy, KO of the year, probably because of lack of competition, if anything. But I mean, that was some crazy stuff, I think.
And what about the next fight? Did you think Wajima totally dominated his opponent?
Well, Kido kept it competitive, I think. I think in the first round, I was, after seeing what Wajima was doing, I thought he would run away with it a bit more. But Kido managed to still return kicks and then low punches. And then, he was just trying to keep it as close as possible. I think Wajima, it was obvious that he really researched Kido. Like, you could see Kido going for his tricks, like the spinning back fist, but Wajima didn't get caught by any of that. Whereas, you saw guys like Jinbo get laid out like that previously in Palace. Wajima's actually a pretty decent prospect, I'd say. I think, with the exception of his last two fights, he had like 10 wins and 10 KOs or something. He's a guy that's still young and still trying to, find his groove. But this is a good win for him.
And I just want to also say, Lopez, when he went down, it was kind of like a tree falling down. It was almost, he kind of just like fell flat on his face when he went down. You're right. That is a knockout of the year for any promotion. It was beautiful. It was like picture perfect. Now, were you, obviously Kimura and Wajima is going to happen later. Was that the finals that you were looking forward to, or were you did you want to see two other people make it to the finals?
I expected Kimura and Paulus if Larson fell through. But Paulus got laid out, and then Larson couldn't make it. So yeah, I mean, it was a Kimura Wajima final, and it was a rematch. So I was looking more for what Wajima could bring to the table with this rematch than anything.
Gotcha. With that, Christian, let's move on to the next match, another super fight.
It wasn't just a super fight. It was a fight for the K-1 Super Lightweight Championship at 143 pounds as Rukia Anpo defeated Fukashi Mizutani of Try Hard Gym via unanimous decision. Two judges scored the fight 29-28, the other 30-27. Anpo, a native of Himeji, Hyogo, Japan, improves to, Anpo is the fighter from Try Hard, might I add, but Anpo, the native of Himeji, Hyogo, Japan, improved to 19-4. Fukashi, the native of Bangkok, Thailand, fighting out of Shino, Tokyo, Japan, drops to 18-6-2 and loses the K-1 is the current K-1. Ah, damn it. I'm sorry. I'm just getting caught up in another fight. What am I saying? Basically, Anpo improved to 19-4. Fukashi drops to 39-14-2. Any thoughts about this fight before I lose my fucking mind?
I think it was a fun one. I'm glad Anpo got got a good showing. So the thing about Rukia is that basically when he was a kid, like when he was like 7 or 6 years old or something, there used to be a TV camera that followed him and his brothers around, promoting him as like this next generation karate guy. And that was back when K-1 was big on the TV show, so he always grew up imagining he was going to become K-1 champion one day. And then K-1 fell apart, and then things were tough on him. But then they rebooted K-1, and then he joined up. So this belt has been in his sights for a long time. Like, he used to be a part of Try Hard Gym with Hiroya and Taiga, but when they left K-1, he refused to go along with him and started up his own gym, even though he's like in his early 20s, so he had to like crowdfund everything to kick his career up, and then try to win this belt. So it's been a long time coming, and I think there's been a lot of pressure for him to just perform at that level, right? So the way he won this belt is that he got a pair of really close and really controversial decisions over like the long reigning Thai champion Yale, and a lot of people were turning on him because those weren't super actiony fights. He just sort of edged the decision, and he's been on the lookout for ways to return to a knockout style. Because before he's been this guy that was pulling off really like Matrix type switch kicks and jumping knees and what have you, and laying people out. And then he was just like had this streak where he couldn't KO people. But now it seems like it's returning a bit. He dropped Fukashi and had a great fight. So good for him.
I like to bring up in the first round he got a successful. What is it like? What is it? A capo kick or whatever? The you see Tenshin do it a lot.
Rolling Thunder.
Rolling Thunder, yeah. Just like out of nowhere, he had Fukashi reeling, and then Fukashi's up against the rope, and he just does this Rolling Thunder. He tried, and it was successful. He hit it, but then he tried it again in the third round, and he was like he missed him by like a mile. I felt so bad. So so was he the fighter that wound up shaving his hair?
No.
Oh no.
The guy who did was Takeru, the guy who fought the Thai.
Ah, okay, gotcha. We'll get to him soon. But so what happens next with both with Anpo and Fukashi after this, Karev? What do you think K-1 will do with them?
Yeah, I think with Anpo, it's pretty clear that he's on the path to a rematch with Yamazaki. And both of them are from the western part of Japan, and K-1's going to have a Osaka event there in like 2-3 months, hopefully. So if that pans out, it's probably a title match then. With Fukashi, it's a lot more difficult to say because he's a lot closer to the tail end of his career, and I think he put on a really good fight. But also, he was coming in here with having won tournament belts and Rise and Rebels and Knockout. He basically had like 5 different belts coming into this, and then he was promoting himself as this invader. But he took a stumble, so we'll see what's next for him. I don't think he's contemplating retirement or something, but I think he's made noise about going up a division, so that might be what's next.
Gotcha. Actually, I want to ask as well. I never heard the name Anpo before. Is that a unique Japanese name? Because you kind of hear a lot of the same names, or you kind of recognize a Japanese name. Is there any? Do you happen to know anything that Anpo, like its significance by any chance?
I think it's a uncommon but not unheard of name. I think the letters stand for like safety and insurance or something like that. Okay. Which is not how he fights. So,
absolutely not. Actually, I'll probably all the fighter. Well, he was probably the one. As someone who's semi new to the new K-1, I thought he was the one who stood out the most for me. Like who was like, oh, I want to see more of this guy. Compared to everybody else who I was familiar with, all the most unknown guys, he was the one who I was like, I hope I see this guy again. I really do.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of people soured on him after the way he won the belts, but he's a guy that he's a type of guy that pulls off stuff that ends up on the top of Reddit and what have you. He's just like KOing people with crazy moves and nobody knows his name. Like, you look up his fight versus Mizumachi. It's just this crazy ninja switch kick that he pulls off.
Oh, gotcha. So is that like available on YouTube, K-1's?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next fight, Christian.
Okay, let's go ahead and go on. 138-pound super fight as Taiyo Asahisa, native of Ukiya, Fukuoka, Japan, defeated K-1 lightweight champion Kenta Hayashi via unanimous decision. 2 judges scored the fight 29-26, the other 30-26. Asahisa improved to 15-7 overall, while Hayashi, the fighter from Try Hard Gym, well, actually, the fighter from Fleisky Gym and a native of Kakogawa, Hyogo, Japan, the K-1 lightweight champion drops to 18-6-2. Now, as far as Hayashi goes, this was his third planned fight on the card. He was originally supposed to face off against Swedish fighter Kim Falk, but Falk could not fly out from Sweden to Japan due to the travel ban. He was next supposed to fight QI2 of China, but we all know China has a serious coronavirus case, and of course, that couldn't have happened. So, do you think that Asahisa just took advantage of the fact that Hayashi just was winded from getting oddball left, right, and center on who was going to face him up until this point?
I guess. I mean, like, this was not supposed to happen. He was not supposed to win this fight. He's coming in on 3 days' notice. He's fighting up a division because he didn't have time to make weight. And Hayashi's been on the roll. But, like, he outclassed Hayashi in every element,
I have to say that Tayo had some of the most beautiful push kicks I've ever seen. Just the height he gets on those kicks was just. He's like reaching even it looks like he's almost overshooting sometimes. Hayashi. But with this fight, Hayashi, give credit to some guy who like you said, had two different opponents and still managed to put on a good fight. I will say though that Hayashi, he came out, his robe said only God can judge me, but seems like the judges do not agree with that. They judge against Mr. Hayashi. But yeah. So what happens with these two? They put on a great fight, I thought. Karev, what happens with Asahisa, and then what happens with Hayashi? You think?
Yeah, Asahisa's a pretty cool character. Like his father basically invented the style of karate that he and his brother does. Wait, did I get it right? His father invented this style of karate, and he basically does it alongside his brother and became kickboxing champions. So yeah, he has a character to go far. The only thing that's been stopping him so far is the fact that he'll go on a roll and then he faces off against Leona Pettis, who beats him. So he's had 2 losses to Leona so far, and he called Leona out after the fight. I don't think they're going to make him do a rematch, but he's always available if they want to delay the Takeru fight any further. Hayashi is still the champion. He's still 62.5 kg champion. This was a non-title fight. But, he has a lot to come back from. I think they might rebook him against one of his last original opponents, probably like Shuai, who defeated Bikoya. But, it's a step back for him for sure. And he just bought a house. So, good luck.
The karate thing makes sense now because in the second round, he got that crane knockdown, reminiscent of Lyoto Machida and Randy Couture. And that is 100% karate. That's a type of karate kick that you just don't see a lot of kickboxers do, or if they try it, they fail miserably, don't even come close to connecting. So now that whole karate thing makes sense now that he was able to basically, get that knockdown. Actually, here's the question I want to ask before, because I'm curious. Why does it seem like and these two fighters are not from that region, but why does it seem like a lot of kickboxers come from the Nagoya Aichi region, Karev? Do you happen to have a...
yeah. It's a big epicenter of kickboxing in Japan. So in Japan, even though it's a small country, right, they basically have a regional kickboxing scene split up by different regions. And Tokyo is by far the biggest because it's where K-1 and Rizin is. So in the Kanto region, they have a lot of gyms over there. But the other cluster they have is in Aichi. And that's going way back, even from, the days of K-1 Max. Sato Yoshihiro used to be a big fighter out of that region. And then since then, guys Noiri, Tetsuya Yamato, Akimoto, a bunch of guys I'm probably forgetting right now, they've all just sort of clustered out of there because I guess they have some really good gyms.
Gotcha. With that, Christian, let's move on to the lone female fight of the card.
Yes, the lone women's fight at 110 pounds featured.
Oop, did we lose you, Christian? Christian? Oh, no.
aka Austin, WWE.
Sorry, Christian, could you repeat that again? You broke up.
Hello? You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could you just repeat that again?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and repeat myself a little slower. This was a 110-pound women's super fight as Kana Morimoto, not to be confused with Kanako Urai, aka Asuka from the WWE, knocked out Italian from Milan, Italy, Gloria Pellitore via TKO. Punches, 2 minutes, 42 seconds of round number 1. Morimoto, who is the K-1 Women's Super Flyweight World Champion, improved to 17-2 in a row, while Pellitore, who holds a 1-1 professional MMA record, and also fought former K1, former Infusion champion Denise Miss Dynamite Killholtz in the Bellator ring at one point in time, drops to 17-7 overall. Now, as far as Kana goes, I just have to ask, is there anybody that can face her? And as far as Pellitore goes, will she be invited back? Knowing damn well that she shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, that's the big question I have. How did she get there? She must have gone there before the travel ban, before the lockdown in Italy. I cannot think of any other reason you can't even walk the streets in Italy. How would she be able to get on a plane to Japan? She must have gone there at least a few weeks early. I don't know. Do you happen to have any sources on that, Karev?
No, it's also possible that she's from Italy, but she trains out of a different gym. I don't know if I've heard that, but yeah, I assume she didn't fly straight from Italy. Otherwise, the authorities in Japan are going to have some problems with K-1.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, let's talk about this match. So yeah, tell us about Kana, one of millions of Kanas who do combat sports in Japan.
Yeah, so Kana's a girl they've been counting off for quite a while. Like, she started emerging on the Japanese scene maybe like 5 years ago, and then she picked the Crush belt when she was only like 3 or 4 fights in, I think. So she was supposed to be this, up and riser, loves in sort of fights like Takeru, and people were counting on her to basically kickstart a women's division in K1 and sort of be that new face that can draw new fans. So they finally made her dream come true and had a K1 Grand Prix last year to crown her champion. But the thing about that was that she was facing, for the finals, she got the extra round decision that a lot of people didn't really agree with, and it's always the same story of these people go up in the K1 tournaments, people know that K1 wants them to win, and they don't always pull off the most decisive and convincing wins. So, she had a lot of ground to make up for in terms of lost credibility, and this was basically the first time in a while, probably like 2 years maybe, that she actually got like a full-blown KO. So, good stuff for her, and hopefully she can replicate this performance on future cards.
Anything you can say about Gloria Pellitore?
I hope she's all right.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. So, okay, so the knockout, so the referee, so I wanted to ask as well, this was also the lone women's referee as well. What can you tell us about this referee? Because she did not appear at all in any other fights.
She refs all female fights in the K1 group. I can't really make up my mind whether it's sexist or equal opportunity, but that's just the thing they have there.
Well, because
if it's a female fight, they get a female referee.
Because Rizin, obviously, they have all the male referees, Jason Herzog, and the rest ref the women's fights as well. So I was just like, it really stood out because, well, apart from being the lone women's fight, the lone woman referee on this entire card. So Is she just the only one on whenever there's women's fight? Is she just the one woman referee, or do they have others as well?
She's the only woman referee, and I think she only refs female fights.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Gloria Paratori. So they're in a. I think they're in a tie up in a clinch. Referee separates them. I have no idea why Paratori has her hands down for even like the amount of time that she did. Morimoto comes in, right hook, boom, she goes down. She's literally looking up at the lights with her eyes open. She was, yeah, there's no 10 count needed at all. Yeah, this will, if you want to say that that Kimura was maybe men's knockout of the year, female knockout, women's knockout of the year, it has to so far go to Kana Morimoto just for where she put Paratori. It was an incredibly it's one of those knockouts where like you're wondering like is she dead? That was how scary it was. So what would be next for Kana at this point? Is there anything what is the women's division like in K-1 at this point?
It's really odd because basically the women's division in K1 is 3 or 4 names that K1 uses frequently, and they know that they can beat each other. So there's Kana, Josephine Knotson, Melanie Helhes, and basically those 3 plus maybe a couple of others like Morales, they call in at times, and then it's sort of like a round robin. Sometimes you beat me, sometimes I beat you, and they don't really have the depth, so to speak, to build a full-blown division out of it. Even the Grand Prix they did previously was only a 4-person Grand Prix. So we'll see. I mean, I think they really want to make the female fighter star thing happen because, they saw how much traction Rizin got with Reina. But you don't know, it's not like the WMMA divisions where you have like a competitive pool that's been, growing for like 5 years, right? So we'll see what they can do with Kana. She's a really tough competitor. She's gone around, and I think they were trying to spark some sort of rivalry between her and Denise Mexen or something, but I don't think that's panning out.
So basically, it sounds like Rizin has, just by default, having Reina has the number one name in women's kickboxing at this point. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if they can do a Kana versus Reina fight, that would be cool. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but yeah, they tried to get Mio, who's supposed to be the second Reina out of shoot boxing. She was this young girl that was supposed to be their next star, but I think they had contract issues with how they were trying to headhunt her. So, kind of sort of lacking a big name to go after at this point.
Gotcha. And is this the only division that K1 has in women's, or do the women do they like do like 115? Do they like switch weights or like anything else about the weight divisions?
There's another weight division that's taking place, I think, like 5 kilograms smaller than this in the crush leagues, but they don't bring it up to the K1 cards because that's even smaller pool of competition there.
Okay, gotcha. Let's move on to the next fight, Christian. We can finally talk about the fighter who shaved his head because of the decision. I really want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it. 121-pound super fight, the second to last super fight of the evening, by the way. As K1 bantamweight champion Yoshiki Take defeated Dancian Ayodaya Fight Gym via unanimous decision. All 3 judges scored the fight 30-29. Take, the fighter from Adachi, Tokyo, Japan, representing Power Dream, improves to 23-2 with a 21-fight win streak. Ayodaya, on the other hand, who needs to have his eligibility checked, I mean, the dude's only 17 years old, by the way, drops to 76, 24, and 3. Now, Andrew, you can talk about how Taike shakes his head.
Yes.
But first, What are your thoughts about Ayadai at 17 years old taking up all these fights? Is he gonna come back potentially?
Oh my god, I don't know. Again, these Thai fighters, I just don't know how they do it. How they have they're 17 and they already have had like 100 fights. I just can't. I know why, but I can't believe that like it's an actual tangible number that they've actually fought in these. This is you have fighters you have Ben Askren who's retiring. I know that MMA is a little bit different, and he did wrestling, but he retired after, I don't know, what was it, like around 20-ish fights, and you have these Thai fighters who are kicking each other in the shin. Oh, and this is their 100th fight, and they're 17 years old. I just can't believe it. It boggles my mind every time. So
Well,
yes,
to be quite honest, I don't know how they do it in Thailand, but as soon as you're able to walk, you're able to fight over there, bro.
yeah, and with all the things where they practice by kicking trees to build up their shin bones, it baffles my mind. But we gotta talk about Takei, Karev. So he got a decision win, but this is not the way he wanted to win. Uh, was this something that he said that he was gonna do if he had not gotten the finish?
Nah, he didn't make a promise, but basically the background of this fight is that Takei is a guy that K-1 is trying to groom to be Takeru's successor. And he does a really good job of melting guys unless they're Thai. So he had this fight against a guy called Yo Praden, maybe like a year ago. And then that was a decision, an extra round decision that he won. And then for his last fight, he fought a guy called Suryanlek. He dropped him, I think, like 3-ish times or something, but he wasn't able to finish him. And basically, when they were making this match and they were promoting him with the VTRs and what have you, they were making this whole story about, hey, wow, Takei, you failed to knock out 2 Thai guys in a row. I bet you can't knock this one out either. And then, he was supposed to get a KO win here, but he couldn't. So this is sort of like a worst case scenario for him.
So apparently, Thai guys apparently are his Achilles heel. He just cannot finish them for whatever reason, no matter how close.
I mean, it has to do with a lot of things, I think. It's because Takei moves in a really odd style, and he has a great timing jumping in and landing combos at you that he has no, business landing on anyone. But if you're able to neutralize him with kicks and you're able to get him down to a war of attrition, sometimes he just fades in the later rounds. So I guess Thai guys can pull that off a lot easier than some of the Japanese competition he's been facing.
And so at the post-fight press conference, is that where he shaved his head?
He didn't shave his head at the conference, but he came in with a shaved head, as a sign of regret and apology. He has a really interesting lifestyle behind him. Like, he lives out of the gym he's fighting in. His coach is also like his adopted father, and he basically lives in this small room alongside another K-1 champion and this other guy from the same gym. And
I think we'll talk about that other K-1 champion in a few short minutes.
Yeah. So he's sort of like it's a really Spartan lifestyle, and I guess he just has to make a show out of it.
So what about Dan Siam? Will he be back to fighting K-1, you think, at some point?
It's hard to say because even though he survived the fight, it's not like he made a huge impression in terms of really going for the kill. Like his last opponent, Suryanlek, he was like lunging at Takei like he was a zombie, and people were really afraid he might actually get the KO. So they brought him back, and they're using him for a lot of things. And I don't know if K-1 has the appetite to call back another time in that division if he's not as aggressive.
Do you think that K-1's is going to feed Thai guys to Takei until he knocks out one?
I don't know. Maybe they learned their lesson, but they really want to put Takei over, right? Like, you don't know how long Takeru has left in him, so they're going to find ways to try to promote him.
I also want to mention that during this fight, I didn't write down the round. I never saw this before, so Takei accidentally it looked like he knocked out Daisam's cop. like it was an accidental groin shot, but the way that it happened, it looked like it knocked his cup out of orbit or whatever, and they stopped the fight for 3 or 4 minutes, and I was trying to figure out like what is going on, and it turns out I figured out, oh, they have to send someone to like actually like go into his pants to like put the cup back in there. That's what happened, I believe, right?
Yeah, that happens.
Okay, I never saw that.
Come to think of it, that's one
Happens
experience
in
no
kickboxing.
man wants.
Sorry,
I
Craig.
mean, come to think of it, that's one experience no man wants to take.
Sorry, Craig. What'd you say before?
Oh, me?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Things happen in kickboxing.
Okay.
Once
Mhm.
Yuta Kubo landed a spinning back kick on Nori right in his nards in the final of a Glory tournament and broke his cup in half. And they just had to scramble to try to find another cup.
Oh, that's funny.
Again, that is no experience a man wants to take. And the fact that it happened under the watch of the Glory Kickboxing promotion, I'm surprised that they even continue to do another event in Japan after that.
Oh, they withdrew from Japan a long time ago. It's sad.
Well, Christian, we gotta talk about the next fight because this wound up being my favorite match of the entire card, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this fight, Karev. Christian, go ahead and talk about this. Read us the. Oh my God, I'm blanking out.
Hey, the main event going well. Actually, the last title fight of the evening, a 198-pound clash for the K-1 Super Cruiserweight Championship of the world, as Iranian Sima Karimian defeated Rio Aitaka via unanimous decision. Karimian, who fights out of the same fight camp as Takei, Power of Dream, Adachi, Tokyo, Japan, improves to 10-1 overall and retains his K-1 Super Cruiserweight Championship of the world, while Aitaka, who's 5'10 and 198 pounds, so he's athletic for nothing, not really, drops to 22-7 overall. Now, y'all talk about Karimian and Taikei training together. I mean, did you think that, this fight kind of rubbed off on, that the energy from Taikei rubbed off on Cena a bit just to get into this fight? And about this fight, any takeaways from it?
After you, Karev.
My takeaway is that, Cruiserweight is the best division, and they should just fire Takeru and buy like 20 more 200-pound chubby Japanese guys.
What did you think of this fight? Because this, like I said, this was my favorite fight of the card. The first round, it looked like Aitaka was going to knock out Cena, but he managed to survive and survive the round. And in the second round, out of nowhere, he gets this. Cena does this spinning forearm back fist, whatever it was, and connects with Aitaka and knocks him down. And I didn't even think that Cena thought they would even connect because I thought it looked like Aitaka blocked it with his hand, but apparently there was enough power behind it to actually knock him down. What did you think about this back and forth fight in the first and second round?
I honestly thought it was like really touching almost. Like it was like an emotional moment watching that fight. Like I don't know if you guys caught that Rizin fight with like Bob Sapp and Bakudo.
Yes.
Oh, no, Arashi.
Yes.
The sumo wrestler. And like it's like, Bob Sapp realizing that he can fight and just sort of coming back from a point of darkness. It was sort of like for
You're talking about the shoot boxing bout between him and Akebono, right?
No, I'm talking about the fight he had with the Egyptian sumo guy, Usano Arashi.
Kintaro, right? We seen that.
It was sort of like that because, like, I don't know if you guys caught the first fight, but Cena Karimian fought Aitaka before, and going into that fight, Cena was just this like 2-meter tall colossus, and nobody could really touch. So people, were just like flailing against him. And then Aitaka was the first guy to find his chin, and he basically laid him out, Mighty Mo versus Hardman Choi style, made Cena go to sleep and face plant and everything. So it seemed like the first round entirely, like Cena was sort of like scared of Aitaka's power and being a lot more cautious than he was in the first fight. But then after he gets knocked down, he sort of like found his courage and actually like started fighting back, made it a lot more rangy, started using his knees, went for that spinning back fist. And like it was sort of it was a nice character arc for him, I think.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Because Cena, like you said, he's 6'7", by the way, and Aitaka is 5'10". Going for a spinning back fist when you're that tall, I just kind of think that just by measurement, you're not going to connect with it, just because you're just so long in your range, you're just bound to miss. But he somehow connected with it, and that was the turning point of this entire fight. And Aitaka just could not recover from that match, from that hit. And so I got to ask, Karev, do you think they do a third match, a rubber match between these two?
I mean, they have to, right? I think what they might do actually is the other guy in this division is Kato Kisaki. You might have seen him not in Bellator, where he beat Joe Schilling once in MMA, once in
kickboxing. How about Melvin Manoff, the Japanese musketeer?
Yeah. So he's been in K-1. He fought Cena, and he lost, and then he's sort of floating around the division. So I think they might do him versus Aitaka next, which should be a fun one. Two guys clubbing each other.
Gotcha. And now that Cena, he trains in Japan now. Probably we get to see a lot more of him on future K-1 shows.
Yeah. Should make it easier with the virus stuff going on and all. But I imagine, it's hard for me to imagine they have a ready opponent for him. They'll probably go to another league and try to scout out a new face for him to fight.
Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about the that division, 205, Super Cruiserweight, or whatever they've officially called it. It seems like that division seems to be very barren in K1. It's kind of like the polar opposite of how the old K1 was, where it was all heavyweights, big guys. Now this K1 is about smaller guys, lightweights, featherweights, bantamweights, and whatever the respective name for those weight divisions are. What are they just? Is it just hard to find those types of fighters in Japan at that weight class for a division like that?
Yeah, basically. So the thing with K1 Japan is that it's primarily a showcase for Japanese fighters, and they don't really spend their money on trying to get top-ranked foreign fighters unless they're good opponents for whatever star they're building up. So I think there's a historical quirk behind K1 doing its heavyweight and cruiserweight divisions, and probably they pulled the trigger maybe 2-3 years too early. They had a guy called Uehara that was a decent cruiserweight. He used to be on the old K1 shows. He used to be on Glory. They thought they could build a division now for him, but he couldn't quite make it, and he retired, and they were just left with a heavyweight and a cruiserweight division that they can't quite fill yet. They maybe have like 2-3 Japanese guys at cruiserweight and basically no one at heavyweight. So, they're still trying to do events and to try to build out those divisions, but it's going to be a really long build out for them.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. So with that being said, let us move on to the co-main. Well, actually, surprisingly to me, was the co-main of this show, and I'll pass that off to you, Christian.
Okay, the co-main event, the last super fight of the evening, the 132-pound clash, as Takeru Sagawa, otherwise known as the fighter that Tenshin Nasukawa is ducking, knocked out Pechdam Pechyindi Academy, a.k.a. Pechdam Pechkiat Pinch, in 49 seconds of round number 2 via TKO. For Sagawa, or just Takeru, he improves to 39-1, retaining, or actually, seeing the fact that the K1 featherweight title was not on the line, he is still unbeaten in his last 20 or 30 some odd fights after starting his career 5-1. As far as Pechdam goes, he just had a boxing bout, his boxing debut, no less than 3 weeks before this fight happened, and the former 1FC flyweight kickboxing world champion drops to an unbelievable 92-47-2.
Jesus
so it's
Christ.
pretty obvious where his priorities lie. But as far as Takeru goes, will there ever be a fight between him and Tenshin Nasukawa? And will it ever happen at the Tokyo Dome as advertised?
Yeah, one quick thing. I think you mentioned Petchdam was a champion. That's actually a different Petchdam. That one is the one that comes out the Baby Shark. This guy's a different guy that got his start on BBTB Stadium events. So last minute replacement. Still a game fighter, but a different fighter.
My apologies, but still, will we ever see Takeru versus Tenshin? Is the main question I gotta ask.
I think all signs point to no.
You're gonna make us
I
cry.
Think, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense for anyone that's trying to put that fight together, to be frank with you.
Well,
and the only person that really wants it at this point is Takeru and the fans.
Well, you know, it's funny that you brought that up. I know that Tenshin on one of his Instagram live things, I think, was directly asked about that, and he said, "Nope, not interested anymore."
Nope.
And so, but what about? Okay, so currently, right now, given the context of coronavirus and what it might, canceling the Olympics, all these shows that are being canceled. Do you think?
Well, actually, it's not canceling the Olympics. It's moving the Olympics up a year.
Okay, yeah, but nonetheless, taking away that big sport for Japan and Tokyo itself. Do you think that perhaps that coronavirus with all the changes and cancellations, postponements, and all the other sports that have gone on in Japan, that it might just happen? I mean, given that there's nothing else, can this fight potentially happen more likely this year, you think? Or is it still a no, Karev?
If it ever happens, it's going to happen this year. It's funny. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that knew that, Takeru's original opponent on this card was going to get, Corona blocked. And we're spreading theories that they're going to have Tenshin jump in at the last moment.
Opponent Adam Bororo, who couldn't fly to Japan due to the coronavirus concerns.
Yes, Adam is the greatest fighter in the world. Everyone respects the ISKA strap. But anyways, that was. I think right now there's a lot of people who are responding to Takeru's ask to put that fight together. Like, the original founder of K-1 actually tweeted after this fight saying they needed to get this done. Masato was on commentary saying that he just wishes they would get the fight done and, satisfy Takeru. I think even Tenshin's sort of amiable to it. He was live tweeting the response to this as well. And, Tenshin's sort of playing, hard to get. Not hard to get, but he's playing mind games at this point because he was the one that asked for the fight first, and then he kept asking for it, but it didn't happen, and he sort of was giving up, and he was like, "Oh, I don't really care if it happens or not." But every time that Takeru is on the news, he'll also perk up and be like, "Well, I want to make sure the right things happens between Takeru and myself." So I think he's amenable to the fight, and a lot of people are rallying behind this idea of holding the kickboxing Olympics, so to speak, in 2020 to fill the gap where the Tokyo Olympics used to be. The only thing is, really, if you are the owners of K-1, it makes absolutely no sense at all to do a fight like this, or to give, equal billing and do co-promotions with a different promoter. It's sort of like how, no matter how big Fedor was back in 2010, the UFC was never going to co-promote with him, And it's basically that type of atmosphere right now. So either Takeru needs to quit K-1 and not just quit K-1, but not fight for a year to get off the contract, to go to a different ring and then promote something that's not K-1, or Tenshin has to enter into an exclusive contract to fight under K-1. And, I just think both of those options are such an anathema to how these two think about things that it's probably not going to get done.
So after the Floyd fight, it sounded like Tenshin wanted to almost leave Japan to do boxing in America. And it sounded like he had, he got the taste of that 15 minutes of fame, and he wanted more. But with the way that the world is now, and clearly, no international fights. If his goal is to come to America and do boxing, it ain't gonna happen now at this point. So I'm just wondering, is it maybe the only big fight that Tenshin can do right now? Because he was supposed to do the Rise Grand Prix, which I think no, he was supposed to fight in Rise, but that fight, that entire card was canceled, and probably whoever would have won that, he would probably beat. Rizin is probably gave him his toughest opponent to date in Rui Ibata, and he wiped the floor with Ibata. So there's really nothing else for Tenshin to do right now in the fight game. So is it at all feasible that because there's nothing else to do, that a fight it kind of just has to happen by process of elimination for this year for like a big sporting event in Japan? Even with all the politics between K-1 and all that, and Rise, all that stuff.
I don't think so, man. I mean, I think right now, Tenshin is still saying he wants to fight abroad at least once this year, and I think the implication is that either he might explore something with Bellator or switch over to One, go off to One. And, One's been flirting with him for a while now, and they have a really strong division at 57.5 kgs to 60-ish kgs. They have Rotang, who Tenshin still wants a rematch with. They also have a bunch of other guys like Haggerty and Mamuni there. That'll be fun competitive matchups for him. The only problem
you have a rematch with Rod Tong.
Yeah.
Well, they were supposed to. Weren't they supposed to face each other in the Grand Prix last year? But then Rotang got pulled.
Yeah. I forget whether they were facing off against each other, but Rotang got pulled. Yeah.
Okay, but regardless, that's probably what everybody was figuring was Rotang and Tenshin were going to clash again. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think was it one. I think one probably pulled him out. I believe.
Yep.
So
I think what happened actually is that Rise got ahead of themselves and announced a fight going down, but they didn't confirm it with Rotang. Rotang denied that the fight was happening soon after, I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. I just want to also, Takeru gave a great speech at the end. He was crying, tears were flowing down his face. He said, I was told not to say this tonight, but because these are the times we live in now, I want to surpass organizations and bring this country together and put on a big event that gives people power, not bound to just K-1. Combat sports is the greatest. Was this speech as emotional as it reads translated, Karev?
Oh, it was a lot more emotional. I mean, it's obvious that he's going through a lot of stuff. Like, he revealed after the fight that he got partial deafness like a week before this fight, and he blamed it on the stress. There's just like a whole bunch of things weighing down on him, right? Like his fight, the fight with Tenshin not happening, him being in the later stages of the career, any fallout that they might see from this event going down. And, he's been pretty clear from the start that he just wants to hold the kickboxing Olympics and, land 2020 with the biggest card since the days when he was a kid watching K-1 TV. He basically, on the first K-Festa card that went down like 2 years ago, he made a promise to the audience that, his legacy in his fight sport was going to be the fact that he's going to bring K-1 back to TV. And he just hasn't been able to do that yet. And the best card that he has is to pull off a cross-promotional event and, pull guys into the Tokyo Dome. So it's something that he's been chasing after for a long time. I think the other nuance is that before, when he wins fights, he used to say K-1 is the greatest, like to, end his fights, end his speeches. But now he's specifically saying combat sports is the greatest. And, a lot of people are interpreting that that's sort of like a little protest on his part, right? And it's fairly innocuous, but, he's making it very clear that he's unhappy and that he just wants a big fight.
So I just want to just bring it up again because you brought up a great point. K-1 is not on terrestrial television. It's on a Bima TV, where does a Bima TV stand in terms of Japanese television?
It's actually So it's this streaming site that popped up over the last 3 years or something, and K1 was one of the first content providers to jump on this ship. It's actually really big right now. I think they're past 15 million installs or something in a country of 120 million people, 130 million people. So it's really big. A lot of people are watching it. A lot of big major TV stars that moved entirely onto Avena. And because K1 was one of the first organizations on there, and they, basically made the fighting sports channel, they've been on a really good streak in terms of just getting media coverage and pulling new people into the sport.
Well, versus Rizin, which has the Fuji TV deal, they're also on Sky Perfect, Gao. They were on Fight TV.
They have the advantage of being shown outside of Japan, being on Fight TV.
Which, I don't know where that stands right now, but I'm just curious to know when you say that K1 doesn't want to co-promote, wouldn't it be in their best interest, considering where they are and versus where Rizin is, to co-promote that kickboxing match, just because they're not on regular or just terrestrial television?
I think that was the thought behind them when they were previously working with Rizin back in 2015. So, Takeru has a fight in Rizin back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened since then is that Abema got kicked off in 2016, I think. And, they started getting the actual audience themselves. And basically the people that watch K1 don't watch other types of fighting sports in Japan. Almost all of them. They're basically like this sliver of K1 fans that are, following it as its own niche thing there. And those people aren't necessarily going to be watching other kickboxing events or even fight events in general. And so that's one thing. Their audiences don't necessarily overlap as much as you think. The other thing is that if you were to envision a co-promotion, it's not going to be with K1 and Rizin probably. It's going to be with K1 and Rise, which is a kickboxing organization that Tenshin fights out of. And then, K1 is very clear that they are the end-all, be-all of kickboxing. That is not true by any means, but they basically have this closed world. They're like the Apple of the kickboxing world. They don't play with anyone. They're just like this weird thing that happens in the corner somewhere, and a lot of people like them. And they don't work together with anyone else because they see it as elevating people to their level, and whereas they are supposed to be feeder leagues.
I see. So basically what you're saying is what K1 has to do is have Takeru versus Leona knock out Takeru, and then Leona just becomes the face of K1 at this point.
Yeah, and that's why Leona is going to be the hero that nobody asked for.
So then do we get 5 years of Leona calling out Tenshin, and we kind of, the circle repeats itself all over again?
I guess, but even if that thing happens, right, K1 has these crazy contracts, and they're basically refreshing every time you take a fight there. So if Takeru says he wants to quit K1 today, he has to wait anywhere between a year to 18 months to maybe even 3 years for him to be able to take fights outside of the organization. So, it'll be the same with Leona.
And before we go on to the main event, the last question I have is: I know the main event was obviously the 154-pound title tournament final, but Takeru not being the main event, was that? I don't know. I just always, whenever I see Takeru on a K1 show, I always think, oh, he's in the main event. He's in the main event, even though this was not a title fight. Was that at all surprising, or was just not? Am I overthinking this?
I think he was supposed to be the main event for this, and I think they promised him it. But when they had to cancel the original fight he had against Adam, and it was no longer a title fight. They did the UFC thing of saying, okay, only title fights can be main carders. So they brought up the tournament final.
Because it would have been a great way to finish the show with the way that he just gave that speech at the end. I think it would have been a great way to cap off. Not that Kimura winning, and talking Japanese would be bad, but what was translated for what Takeru said. I think that would have been the perfect way to just encapsulate that entire show. That's just me personally. But with that, Christian, speaking of the main event, let's move on to it.
Yeah, and let's move on to it because it didn't really last too long. In the 154-pound Grand Prix tournament finals, Philip Minoru Kimura TKO Hiromi Wajima in the first round. 1 minute, 10 seconds to become the K-1 154-pound or 70.5 kilo Grand Prix tournament winner. Kimura improves to 35-9-1. He's currently on a 12-fight winning streak. And he's 14-3 since taking that beating from Charles Crazy Horse Bennett. Wajima falls to 12-4 overall as a kickboxer while going 2-1 on the night. And Kimura's 4-minute and 36-second run through the tournament is the fastest run K1 history, both in the modern era and in the old era. But when you think about Philip Minoru Kimura, obviously we keep mentioning that one time he fought in MMA where he got his ass kicked by, obviously, one of the most craziest individuals in professional combat sports history in Charles Felony Bennett, a.k.a. Crazy Horse. But, obviously, Kimura has shown more than just that. So I have to ask, even though he is a former K1, even though he's a former Crush World Champion, a former Mod Japan Super Lightweight Champion, what do you think Kimura's future holds? Does he potentially get another K1 World title opportunity? Or is he just going to have to wait out a little bit?
Yeah, now he is a champion since he won the Grand Prix. And it's a big moment for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The way K1 Grand Prix work isn't like Rizin Grand Prix. You have the Grand Prix title of the tournament, and those are actually the main titles. But basically, now that he's basically been this guy that's on the fringes for 4 or 5 years. He was on the very first K1 card I went to, back in K1 Japan card I went to back in 2014, when they kicked off this whole thing. And they had this huge, crazy tournament there with guys like Kubo in it and like Geo Uesugi and Yamazaki in it. And Kimura was this trash-talking brat, basically, that was calling everyone scum and saying he was going to knock everyone out. And then in the very first round of the tournament, he gets bodied by Soda, who's this, random guy that nobody gave a hope of anymore, to. And then, people were expecting that, he just fades away from that. But then, since then, he just found ways to, actually get into the limelight, pull up some crazy KOs, go on a couple of streaks, get a chance to challenge for the title, get absolutely shut down and destroyed, go off into a career tumble where he loses to Felony Bennett in 7 seconds, gets knocked out by 3-4 other guys. And then, he just sort of just found himself and he's on a killing streak right now. And he's really calmed down a lot, I think. He's not talking nearly as much trash as he once was. But he does recognize that he sort of was supposed to become a star, but he's sort of been a sideshow. And even though he's had the charisma to pull off a bigger role, this is the first time he's actually had the title to actually earn that type of main event caliber status for him. So we'll see. It could be he loses to some other guy in 6 seconds, or he might actually, really pull off a long dominant reign and become a long-running star for them. But, I'm rooting for him, even though I wasn't 5-6 years ago. It should be a good one to watch going forward.
So I'm curious. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say that K1 wants a Japanese champion to represent the organization, does he count as being Japanese kind of by proxy since he does live and train and looks like he speaks fluent Japanese as well?
Yeah, dude.
He's originally from Curitiba, Paraná, Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Krav, go ahead.
Yeah, they promote him as Brazilian a lot of times, but he is Japanese for all intents and purposes. He's even had opponents come up to him and say, "Hey, you're not a Philip. You're just a Kimura." I've seen him around in town in Tokyo. He's just like this friendly neighborhood guy that's hanging out at bars and stuff. So he's basically Japanese.
Gotcha. And so, what about Wajima? What happens to he made it to the finals, but did not survive. So, what does K-1 do with somebody who comes, who loses in the finals of a tournament usually?
Typically, what they do is they find another guy in that tournament that performed really well, but didn't make it to the finals and make them fight each other. So probably in his case, he has to face someone like Eder going forward. He's actually beaten most of the Japanese guys at that weight. Uh, and unfortunately, this is his second time losing to Minoru. So even though he's pretty young, I don't see a rematch for him in his cards. Uh, so, best of luck to him. I think they're going to try to make him prove himself more against foreign competition.
And what about Kimura? Do you have anybody pegged or have an idea who might be his first challenger?
So, Masato really wants them to call back one of the earlier K-1 70 kg champions, so Chingiz Alazov or Marat Grigorian. Grigorian's not going to move from Glory. I don't think Alazov is moving from Bellator kickboxing, but maybe they'll just.
Well, I mean, that can only be obvious because Bellator kickboxing hasn't done a damn thing in over a year.
So I've heard. It's really funny. Like the guy could fight Giorgio Petrosian, but nobody knows when the fight is happening or has any way to view it live. But that's where he is.
I just realized. What about Jordan Piqueur again?
Could be. Piquero might move up a division. Piquero's also looking to stay in 67.5 kgs, but I think that's the obvious, not the obvious, that's the best fight. Otherwise, they might do Noiri Fukashi, who fought at 65 against Yamazaki, was saying maybe he can go up to 70. So, that'll be a fun fight if that happens. Yeah, a lot of options.
Now, here's the thing. If you were a first-time viewer of K-1, never seen Kimura before, you kind of would probably take away, oh, this guy's a killer. Nobody can defeat him. Who do you think is and going off that, who would you say would be the person that might have the biggest chance to beat Kimura going at the streak that he's on right now?
Well, I think with Kimura, his weaknesses have always been the same in that he's not really that resilient, whether it's to his chin or to his body. If you can weather his early pressure and reapply pressure, you can beat him. And Noiri and Piquero didn't have any difficulty in knocking him out previously. So I think if they were to get the rematch, I think Kimura's a lot better now than when they fought him, but either of them would have a good chance of beating him.
Maybe if he ever gets permission to leave the country to go into Japan again, maybe Charles Felony Bennett versus Kimura in a rematch, this time kickboxing.
Oh man, you should not root for that. Like they made him do a whole bunch of kickboxing after that fight happened, and it did not go well for Felony.
Oh, for Felony or for Kimura?
Yeah, for Felony. They shoot boxing called him in. He got defeated there. He went off to China and he lost there. I think he's been on a straight losing streak since he fought Kimura or something.
Yeah. Christian, you know more about the losing streak of Bennett. What's he at now?
He definitely has been going on a losing streak. As a matter of fact, he's gone on an 11-fight losing streak since then, and he's now 30, 41-2.
My God. Anyway, Karev, I want to get your thoughts overall on the show itself. 25 fights, putting on a show in the middle of a global pandemic. Was this show as good as the presentation was? And what were your favorite fights or finishes of the show?
Yeah, so as I said, I can't say this was a good idea for K-1, but honestly, I really enjoyed the card. A lot of KOs, a lot of good action. It sucks that we didn't get that, one or two real barn burners that goes back and forward besides the cruiserweight fight. But even with that aside, people weren't really counting on this card because,
it wasn't the strongest KFS card yet, and there were a lot of cancellations. But still, I actually think it was a lot more enjoyable than their last year's presentation.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, did you have a favorite fight or favorite knockout?
Yeah, so probably favorite fight. I shouldn't say this, but it was probably the Caribbean versus Aitaka fight. Um, Probably also I would say that the Fukashi and Rukia fight was really good. I think Masato and Sato Yoshihiro were on commentary saying that reminded them of their K-1 Max days, which is really high praise.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many knockouts of the night. It's hard to pick one, but it's probably the Kimura knockout over Eder, Kana's knockout. You know, I also it probably wasn't the best knockout of the night, but I'm glad Takeru had a dominant win. You know, it would have been too sad if he got another split decision given his emotional state.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about so? Do you think that K1 got some international eyes because of this show, and you think that they're gonna they'll be able to? You think that K1 will be smart and be able to capitalize it, hopefully in the future with bigger when they have their next big show?
You know, I think given how long they've been in this game but not been doing live foreign streams, that's just a thing that we can't expect them to change. They're not going to do Fight TV, I'm pretty sure. Like, they haven't to this day, and they won't going forward. The best hope is that Abema TV internationalizes the Fight Sports channel. They've internationalized some of the other channels that they've had, and you know it's sort of a rights issue because they need to get the rights to broadcast different things in different locations. But there's always a hope that Abema gets on its game before K1 does.
Because you know, it's. I think they definitely, and I said it before, they could have definitely gotten a lot of international fans to pay for this show if it was available legally and easily, I'll say, for us over here. But is K1 just is it? I know it's a stereotype that a lot of Japanese companies miss the ball when it comes to international, jumping on that international bandwagon. Do you think that this is a case that of you know the day that they finally start to recognize that they have an international eyes on them, it'll maybe just be too late by then, or nobody will care?
You know, I think the thing with K1 Japan is that they know what they need to do to be successful, so they're not going to do things outside of it. Like, they know that they have to work towards a certain fan base to get them to keep watching and coming back to the stadiums. So they're not going to take risks to appeal to a fan base outside of that. And it's not just an internationalization thing, but it's also the reason why they will never do a Tenshin Nasukawa co-promotion fight.
Because I know on the Beaver stream they did have they had the fighter's name in English. So I mean they didn't have to do that. I know that's a little small thing, but that tells me that I mean do they normally put the English names of the fighters on their shows?
They've slowly come around to doing a bit more presentation in English. Like they've started back dubbing a lot of the fights that they've had in English commentary and posting them on YouTube. The production level is not the greatest thing in the world, but they are picking up on it. But I think, you know, coming in from the outside and watching Japanese promotions, it's easy to get a overinflated sense of how much international viewing can contribute to their revenues. And fundamentally, you know, given the time zone issues and the fact that you have to sell pay-per-views, all the pay-per-view audiences in places in the Western Hemisphere is just going to be limited. You know, Pride thought they could sustain themselves on pay-per-view sales. They couldn't. And then I think Rizin is trying to shift in that direction too, but it's still an open question. And I think the K1 brass is looking at the pennies that they have to gather if they were to try to do more effort for overseas stuff, and they made the decision not to pursue that.
So what is K1's next big show? I know there's the Crush show is supposed to happen, but that's not one of their big shows. What is the next big show that fans and people who like Japanese kickboxing can look forward to being put on?
Yeah, so you know everything is with
quotes in the air because who
Yes.
knows when these things are popping up. But the next big show is supposed to be in July. So they're going to Fukuoka, which is a city in Kyushu, which is a regional city, to pull off their first event there. They have a couple guys locally that I imagine they'll pull in. And then they have an Osaka event for the summer season, which is going to be in August 22nd. So that's probably going to be their next big show. And then they have a year-end show, which is probably going to be their biggest in November 15th, which is going to be in Ryogoku Kokugikan, the sumo stadium.
But it's
That one,
sorry.
so that one is probably a Takeru event.
Gotcha. And is it fair to say that K Festa is kind of like, if they're putting it in wrestling terms, either their Wrestle Kingdom or their WrestleMania, their Super Bowl?
Basically, it's the one that's supposed to get TV broadcast. And they were trying to work something out for this one as well. And they were supposed to play on tape delay, but that ended up falling through with all the controversy. So, they're probably hoping K-Festa 4 can get people's eyes back on the product.
Gotcha. So if anybody wants to watch this show, I mean, I don't know what's the best way I can say. I mean, the fights are on YouTube individually. I think that all the fights, if you search the right ways, and by the right ways I mean...
Or if you go to youtube.com/user/K1 World League.
Well, no, the K-1 hasn't uploaded any of the fights. You have to find them through other sources. Best way to do is just look up the Japanese names or the katakana, kanji for the fighters, because that's the best way you can fight it. There's the Chinese website that I think most people use. Like, if you want to sit down for like 10 hours straight to watch a show, by all means, do that. But most of us don't have time like that. So if you want to do that, and it's a lockdown era of that we're currently in, so maybe you do have time for that. But if you just want to see the fights individually, no entrances. Actually, let me ask about that as well. Who do you think had the best entrance out of all the fighters, Karev?
Man. I'm going to give it to Takeru just because they had the orchestra play before their walk-ins as well. So that was cool. I do not want to give it to Yuta Kubo, who had his wife singing.
But with that, Christian, before I pass off our social media, I want to pass off to you, Karev, where people can follow you, reach you, and follow everything that you do to help cover K1, JMMA, and all that stuff.
Yeah, for now you can follow me on Twitter at KARAEV_FAN. But soon I'm looking to pick up a couple writing engagements at a couple other fight sites, so I'll let you guys know on my Twitter feed there. Besides that, I don't have that much to promote myself. I just hope that you guys stick around the Japanese kickboxing product, because it's a really underappreciated segment of the combat sports market, I think. And hope I see you on Twitter someday.
Oh, absolutely. I'll say for myself, this was definitely, even though there was 25 fights and this show it felt its length, it was still a great show to watch. I mean, they had no competition that week, so there's nothing to really compare it to. But compared to, I think, other than maybe the Conor McGregor-Donald Cerrone fight, I didn't feel like, that card, was good overall. But I felt like this had a nice full pace to it. There was no bad fights. There was no bad fights at all. And the fights that were great, and the knockouts were great. It's definitely a show to watch, especially with how barren the combat sports world now is. And hopefully K1 will make shows somewhat accessible to the best of their ability, or Bima, whoever's controlling those switches. Hopefully we can watch them on YouTube, and then watch the ways that sometimes us Westerners have to watch these fights. But Christian, off to you now.
Okay, like I said at the beginning of this show, if you want to follow us on Twitter, in addition to Kara Fan, you can do so. I'm at ChrisGary92. Andrew is at ABinja1. The show podcast is at We Are Rizin Pod, WeAreRizimPod, all in one word. And as far as the podcast goes, you can listen to us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, but hopefully soon we'll be getting things going so you can listen to us on all podcast providers of choice. And Andrew, please, if you get the chance, please go to podbean.com so we can get this damn thing going.
I think at this point, Christian, K-1 will have a television deal in America before we get on Podbean.
Of course, right. But, I mean, yeah, that's going to happen. Hopefully that'll happen sooner than later, because we all know it's going to take a while for this K1 to get on American television before we get on and stream to the world, to the masses, so to speak. But anyways, if you like what we're putting out, just check us out on those platforms. And be sure to follow Focus Fights. We cover prospects from all around the fighting world, the scenes of Japan, the US, the UK, pretty much everywhere in the world that isn't going through quarantine hell will be emphasized. You can follow currently on Facebook and Instagram at Focus Fights. The Twitter page is currently down at the moment due to some bullshit restrictions. I don't know. But when it gets back up, you can follow on Twitter as well, because that's our best way of communicating with you at Focus Fights. Or just search for the YouTube channel. Or just type it into your Google machine, Focus Fights, FOCUS, And in the case of the Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, that's all in one word. And as far as the best ways to contact K1, I just mentioned one of them. You can check their YouTube channel out. YouTube.com/K1World. Well, actually, YouTube.com/user/K1World League. They are on Instagram and Twitter at K1WGP_PR. They are on Facebook at Facebook.com/K1Japan. And you can just check them out in Japanese on their website, k-1.co/jp. But still, it's been fun talking with y'all. Thank you, Kara F. Fan, for joining us. We hope to have you on soon for more great. Come to think of it, if it's okay with you, would you potentially like to join us when we get back to our regular operations of doing and covering MMA?
I often have trouble promising to do long-term things. I will say that sounds like a really cool idea, and I'll probably be up to join you on a point basis. To be honest with you, the late night shift of covering MMA fights for Rizin and things like that have gotten pretty brutal for me as well. So if I am on, happy to hop on and be of help, but can't promise I won't miss events as they come along.
Understood, because when it comes to Rizin and, Japanese combat sports in general, it's a bitch to, try and cover everything, but it gives everybody a bit more of an understanding, But other than that,
Yep, that's fair.
Right. But other than that, it's been fun talking with y'all. We are thankful that you, the listener, have joined us for another edition of the We Are Rizin podcast, and we thank y'all for listening and helping spread the word about us. Be safe, drive carefully, take care of yourself and others. Make sure to wash your damn hands every 20 seconds, or every time you touch your face, mouth, or eyes. And remember, as the I'm sorry. I mean, it's hard for me to try and finish these things again without feeling tongue-tied, but still, point of the matter is, it's been fun talking with y'all. We hope to kick it with y'all again, not too soon, but hopefully soon enough. And as Lenny Hart always likes to say as we close out another edition,
And just like that, we out this mug. Talk to y'all later.